Hey, everyone. Welcome to this week's session of The Good, the Bad, and the True. It's your girl, Naya Angel, coming through with my co-host and homies for life, Mr. P.A.T. and E-Man. What's up, fellas?
What's good? What's good, listeners? What's good? What's good?
Yeah. We got some great subjects to get into this week's, fellas. But before we do, it is time for all our listeners out there for E-Man's public announcement reel. For those of you who don't know, this is the time of this episode where E-Man drops some gems. Go ahead and throw them out there, sir.
Thank you, Naya Angel. Thank you so much. So, first things first, there was a post, that was on Facebook that stated, that Drake was a bigger star than Michael Jackson. When I saw that shit, the first thing that came in my mind, the first thing that came in my mind was Drake was a hoe, by the way, and whatnot. Talking about bigger than Michael Jackson. I was like, until this dude Drake can have not 5 decades of music, 3 generations who can love his music and take it and bring it on to the next generation, then he ain't got nothing. But that fool is a hoe. So he's a big ass hoe. Yes. So Audrey Graham, you are not better than Michael Jackson. I don't know who would entertain you because of that. I don't know. But you're just a hoe. All right. Next item up the biz and whatnot. So the BET Award. All right. Naya Angel told me she somewhat watched it and
the ciphers. I somewhat watched the ciphers.
Oh, the ciphers and whatnot.
Yes.
We're gonna make sure we get
as
that
much as I could stand.
All right. So as much BET has put themselves in their own drowning water of hellhole, you did it to yourself. So and it was odd. I think I think we was talking about the basement thing, I think in our last segment.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be one day. So supposedly, I think when we had broke that segment, I think the BET Awards was actually here 2 days, I think 2 or 3 days later. It actually happened on a weekday and whatnot, which was odd and weird. But I knew that shit was shit and I wasn't going to watch it because it don't even make sense to watch anymore. So BET, go to hell and burn yourself. So boom. Now, the last and final thing. I'm tired of BET. They need to do something. I don't know what they need to do, but they need to do something. I don't know. I feel like they need to go take a towel and go wipe their asses and be like, there's too much shit on it. I'm like, of course there's too much shit because that's all you guys want to keep selling. So, yeah. So, all right. So, last and final thing. I've already said this before, but it needs to be said again. Joe and the hoe just got to go. Right now, for this nation and whatnot, for this huge, beautiful nation that we keep calling the USA, Joe and the hoe got to go. They messed up everything to the point that the dollar store is now charging items over $1. So that yes. It's gotten down to that point now that the dollar store has now hit inflation that they're going to be charging certain items over $1. Yes. So, they've gone.
Sorry. I don't know why this is funny to me.
It's so funny. I'm mad, frustrated. I want to laugh, but I can't laugh. I'm trying to be serious.
Wait, are you talking about like one specific dollar store, or are you saying
no? We're talking about
stores
all of them.
Are
like
raising their price?
So the Dollar Tree was always known for having all items in there being $1.
Right
now, they can charge someone an item that's $1.25. Do you know that outrage that can have somebody losing their mind walking into the dollar store where you need to buy something for $1 and you ain't got that damn quarter and you already got the 6 cents? or whatever tax you got to pay for it. Now you got to pay
maybe overthinking this, but I feel like they need to change their name then. Shit. You ain't the Dollar no more. You ain't the Dollar Tree. No.
Right.
It's going to be hard because how you going, so what you going to do? You just going to walk into the $1.25 store now, and up, the
$1.25 tree store. That's
I don't know, but they messed up things that they can't come back from and whatnot. And everyone who has voted for him has not said anything at all. So for all those who voted for Joe and the Ho and whatnot, which Calvert County, Maryland has already stated that they need to go, and I agree with them too, that you should speak up, because if you don't want to speak up, what you need to do, because you guys voted for somebody that you guys ain't really supporting, but you got to tell them that y'all swimming in the fishes too when this whole thing hits when it hits the fan. All right. So when this shit goes under, y'all going with them too and whatnot. Because I'm out here going to survive with everyone else that needs to survive. So let's get started on the beautiful, beautiful first topic of the day.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you. And for those again out there, our listeners, our supporters, we just want to say thank you for all the love that we've been receiving.
Yes, thank you.
Please continue to share, subscribe. The content, we always keep it fresh, funky, and live. And we definitely appreciate that support. And before we jump right in, I just want to give a little message out there to everyone in the listening world. Please know that here on the Good, the Bad, and the Truth podcast, we are always going to speak our thoughts on the subject. But of course, we are not in any way meaning to discriminate or impose on anyone's lifestyle. To each their own. These are our opinions and our individual thoughts on the matter. So, jumping right into the first subject of the night, let's talk about Mr. Kyrie Irving. So for all of our listeners, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, that's the brother right there.
Yeah, so Kyrie has been in the thick of things lately, man. For those of y'all who don't know, it's a lot going on with Mr. Irving right now. And the gist of the matter is he is smack dead in the middle of the vaccine debate. So we, of course, are going to touch on the subject. And our official question is it fair for Kyrie Irving or anyone else to lose their job over vaccine mandates? So, fellas, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and start us off on this subject, because for me, I think it's, fairly simple. So, to the question, is it fair for Kyrie Irving or anyone else to lose their job? Absolutely not. In my opinion, it's within everyone's constitutional rights to refuse vaccination and to impose mandates that force people to be vaccinated and ultimately negate those rights should be unconstitutional. It's that simple. Just like people have the right to be vaccinated and to choose to be vaccinated, people have the right to not be vaccinated. It's crazy how this subject has caused such great division within our country. People who are vaccinated are actually looking down on people who are non-vaccinated. We're talking about a constitutional choice. Since when is it okay to look down on someone because of their constitutional right that they're enacting? Did we learn nothing from all of these different situations that have occurred in our country in the last 50, 60, 70, 80 years? It's preposterous. I mean, I'm certain that most companies are making exceptions for folks who have religious limitations, because enforcing vaccinations will go against their right to practice their religion. So the same consideration should be made for anyone else, since we're talking about constitutional rights. Because if not, we're looking at the convolution of those rights, which would inevitably lead to people feeling that they have the right to violate other people's whenever they see fit. I mean, it's exactly how some cops and bigots treat the constitutional rights of Black people. Oh, I'm going to be willy-nilly about whether this person gets to execute their right or not. No, we got to put a stop to that shit now. People don't have the right to judge people based on whether or not they want to get the back. I mean, let's keep it a buck. You do, right? If that's what you can be within the walls of your home and feel however you want to about someone else. But that person doesn't have to give a shit about how you feel about them. Their constitutional right allows them to make that decision without giving a fuck about what you think about it.
Correct.
It's that simple.
Couldn't be that simple.
However, with all that said, though, of course, Kyrie should understand that with every decision, there are consequences. But as per his latest video commentary on his Instagram, it's clear that he does. Right? He comes out and says that he's making the decision that fits his life the best. He doesn't expect people to necessarily agree with it. So he's of clear mind making this decision. It's not like someone is putting the gun to Kyrie's head. It's not like there isn't evidence that Kyrie goes against the grain most of the time anyway. Kyrie is a flat earther believer. I mean, a lot of people don't see him as someone of the norm anyway because of his history with these kind of things. You know what I'm saying? So I don't understand why anyone's shocked.
So sorry to cut you off, Night Angel and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cool that he thinks that the earth is flat. I think it's square, but that's just me. But continue.
I'm sorry, say that last part again.
Oh, I just said basically that, that it doesn't bother that, Kyrie thinks, the earth is almost flat. I think it's square, but that's just me though. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to each their own, right? My ultimate point is that I don't know why people are shocked by this. This is the Kyrie Irving he's always been. He's always gone against the grain. And at the end of the day, what he's doing, because he's not just saying, I'm not going to be vaccinated, but I'm going to still come around people. He's accepted that he's not going to be vaccinated and he's going to forfeit being able to play. He's accepted that. Now, let's talk about that other side of it, right? Who does his decision affect? Because obviously, I understand that his decision affects his teammates and specifically their championship run, right? Because
not exactly, though. Not exactly.
The Brooklyn Nets, right? I mean, look, so finally, the Brooklyn Nets would have a healthy Kyrie, healthy Kevin Garnett. I was going to say Kevin Garnett, healthy Kevin Durant, and a healthy James Harden, which is almost like
isn't Blake Griffin still on the team?
I'm sorry?
Isn't Blake Griffin still on the team?
I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not sure about Blake. But with those three alone, that's almost like a guaranteed playoff run out of the East, right? You're talking about Durant, Kyrie, and James Harden. So I get it. But still, I think it's ridiculous to ask someone to go against their core beliefs just to satisfy their teammates' wants to go to the championship. So
sorry to cut you off, Night Angel. Sorry. I'm so super sorry.
No, you're
but
fine.
I'm just letting you know Blake Griffin is actually on the team. Just saying.
Okay. So Blake Griffin too. I mean, I think for me, it's not that, I was purposely leaving him off, but Blake Griffin is not a part of what people consider the major three for the Nets, right? It's like ever since there was Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and and the other one in Ray Allen in Boston. Like when people refer to these super teams, they normally talk about their big three, right? Like now in LA, you got LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook, right? So that's basically why I mentioned those three. But yes, absolutely right, Blake Griffin as well. But still, to my point though, to ask someone to go against their core beliefs just to satisfy the rest of the teams want to go to a championship. I know this sounds crazy because you're talking about an entire team, but you're talking about someone's constitutional right to make a decision that they feel could possibly change their life. I mean, again, if this was a religious person, they wouldn't be doing it. You think that any of them would come to them and be like, dog, fuck your religion. We really want this championship. Go against it? No. So why do they think it's okay to come down on Kyrie like this about this situation? I'm sorry, but I'm tired of this. I'm going to be choosy about when I'm supporting someone's rights behavior. It's fucked up. People are judgmental of people who are anti-vax. They make fun of them, their Facebook memes and etc.
Yeah,
you have no right to be judgmental about how someone else chooses to live their life. I bet you they won't do that against someone who chooses not to vax because of their religion. What's the difference?
That's true. And also, sorry to cut you off again, Night Angel, but what I wanted to say was that this whole vax and unvax thing, if you really look at the retrospect of the lens behind it, it is basically simple discrimination by segregation. Think about it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. And what we're saying here is that there's a certain air to people who are vaccinated as if they're somehow better. Let me drop a few dimes for people who are unaware of what's going on with vaccinations, okay? First of all, being vaccinated does not mean that you are somehow immune to COVID. I personally know several people who are fully vaccinated who still contracted COVID afterwards.
Boom.
So stop it. Stop it. You are not somehow Superman or Superwoman just because you're vaccinated. That's one. Two, we're literally talking about a level of classism that's happening here. These people literally think that they are somehow better than people who are not vaccinated just because they got the vaccine. First of all, there's a certain level of ignorance tied to that I can't even speak on, because you're literally declaring yourself superior to someone because you chose to get a shot. Think about the level of ignorance and air of stupidity associated to that statement. Yeah, that's like, why aren't you saying that about when you chose to get a flu shot and someone else didn't?
True.
Are people who chose not to get a flu shot also less than you?
True.
It's ridiculous. It's preposterous and it's ridiculous, and people need to be called out. Get the fuck off your high horse. You're still eligible to get COVID and die from it.
Correct.
It's that simple.
That is correct.
Correct.
I mean, people are making arguments. Well, yes, but you're less likely to die from it. It depends on the individual immune system. I mean, listen to the argument, right? The argument is that COVID keeps on evolving. That's why people have to get vaccinated, and that's why some people still get it after they've been fully vaccinated. Well, if it keeps on evolving, that means you would have to keep on releasing vaccinations in order to be immune to it or to build up immunities to it. How many fucking vaccinations you gonna take? 100? I'm just over it. And let me be clear. I'm not saying that people who have vaccinations are the ones wrong. The point is, I'm not fucking judging either set of people, and neither should no one else be. Let me be clear. Even though I made all of those factual comments, look them up, about getting vaccinations, I'm not saying that people are wrong for choosing to be vaccinated. I'm
That's your
saying
choice.
get off your high horse for looking down at people who choose not to be. It's none of your business what the next person does. If you're vaccinated, you should be good, right?
That's what I thought.
That's your argument.
That
You're
is
vaccinated,
your argument.
you should be good. So why you care about the non-vaccinated people? Oh,
you know the reason
they're
why?
causing it's bullshit.
You know
their
the reason
arguments
why?
have no validity.
It's
causing the numbers to increase. Well, so are the people who are vaccinated that are still getting COVID.
True.
Yep.
Technically, they're causing the numbers to increase as well.
That is true.
But here comes the funny thing about the whole situation. Remember when Dr. Fauci said, we got to make sure we get our COVID vaccine so we can stop the spread of COVID. I'm like, so you're not even talking about getting rid of it. You chose your words lightly and said, stop the spread of COVID. I'm like, okay, that don't even make sense.
My specific point, because again, I'm actually someone who's very big in science, and that science is very important. Same. However, the logic behind getting vaccinated to stop the spread and those who don't are continuing the spread is ridiculous, because those who vaccinated have also continued to get COVID.
Yep.
So if that's your argument, it's invalid. And to my point, in general, stop judging people because they made a right that they made a decision, that they are 100% within their constitutional rights to make. Stop doing that. It's that simple. We can't continue to do that. Now, one last point in summation, right? According to Kyrie's latest statements on this, so his Instagram live video that he did, it sounds like there were some other things going on in the background that we weren't aware of, because as per the CBS Sports article, Kyrie is or was under the impression that he had a choice. Here's what the article reads. Most notably, Irving confirmed that he is unvaccinated and said that he will not be retiring, and claimed that he was promised an exemption from the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, let's think about what we're saying. Irving made this statement on a live video a live video Instagram post. So he knows he could be liable for slander. He comes out and says he was promised an exemption. It sounds to me like once the city of New York made their decision to have people vaccinated, that's when the NBA decided to enforce it, which fine, I get it. That makes perfect sense. You're in Brooklyn, people are playing at the Barclays Center or whatever. Yes, you got to follow the New York protocol. But so don't act like Kyrie is just some wild fucking being just acting off emotions and etc. It sounds like at some point before that mandate came down, y'all was willing to let him do him. Now you're trying to vilify him. I'm not for it. It's just bullshit. He has the right to do what he feels is right for him. It's that simple.
I agree.
Nothing else to be said about it. Let the man live, because it's his constitutional right to make that decision.
We can't be saving hoes.
Those are my thoughts on it. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. P.A.T. What say you, sir?
All right, so my answer to this question is going to be very simple and straightforward. And my answer is no. No one should lose their job over vaccine mandates. Mm-hmm. I mean, what the fuck? For real, like, what the fuck? Why are people's livelihoods being threatened over these mandates?
Right.
Like, it's just crazy to me.
And unconstitutional.
Yeah, it's unconstitutional. Like straight up, it's unconstitutional. So, to answer the question straightforward, no one should lose their job over vaccine mandates. If people refuse to get the jab, they shouldn't have to be threatened with job loss. I mean, it's crazy that things have gotten to a point where, people's livelihood is just being threatened over these mandates. I like, it's just crazy to me. Everyone should not be forced to get the jab. Obviously, some people will get it and then others won't. I mean, whoever decides to get it, fine. No one's going to knock that. I mean, I'm sure some people will because, people have their opinion. But, I mean, if people want to get it, go get it. If people don't want to get it, don't get it. I mean, it's really that simple. People just need to mind their own business. If somebody doesn't want to get it, they don't want to get it. Why are you worried about, let's say if you're vaccinated, why are you worried about who's unvaccinated? Because if you're vaccinated, you should have nothing to worry about, right? I mean, so, people just need to mind their own fucking business. That's just, that's my answer, my straightforward answer anyway. My straightforward answer.
Mind your damn business. That's what
right. Mind your damn business. If you're vaccinated, just mind your business. Don't worry about who's unvaccinated, who's vaccinated. Worry about yourself. If you're vaccinated, cool. You should be all right. Everything should be all right for you. Yeah, you should.
Remember, you stopped the spread of COVID. That's why you got this shot, right?
Right.
That's what everyone said.
Otherwise, they wouldn't still be able to get the motherfucker.
Right.
That was perfect, right? That was perfect.
But yeah, so I came across a Yahoo Sports article that stated that Kyrie Irving will not play until COVID-19 vaccination is resolved. So, in other words, he will not be able to play for the Brooklyn Nets until he is jabbed or the city's vaccine mandate is lifted.
Yeah, but he still get paid for the away games.
Oh yeah, I mean, my man.
There we go.
Yep, he's still gonna get like 17 million for the away games.
Cool.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
And he don't even gotta play in them. He don't even gotta play in games. He gonna get 17 million to sit home.
Nice.
I love it though.
Yeah, I love it too. I love it. But so I mentioned the city. So the city being discussed is New York City, for those who weren't aware. So right now, New York City is requiring proof of at least one dose of a vaccine. They're requiring proof of that in order to enter large indoor gatherings. The Barclays Center and its employees have to follow that mandate. Now, I actually already had this type of discussion with a couple of the homies. Now, in my opinion, personal health outweighs a team sport.
Agree.
Now, I know a lot of the sports fans are gonna, come at me about that, and
No, they should go eat a dick. That's what they should do.
No, I agree.
But Pat, would they come at you about that if, say, this person had like cancer or something? No,
probably not.
It's just this particular subject they're being douches about.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Because they want their team to go to the championship, and so
that too. But because they can't act like how they want to act, like they feel like, well, COVID has stopped me from like going to enjoy my basketball game, or I can't go outside and go enjoy beers with my fellas, or I can't, do the shit that I was doing before this, that's what it is.
It all boils down to selfishness. I mean, people are saying Kyrie Irving is being selfish, but really, the fans are whoever's saying, he needs to go get vaccinated and all this other shit. Really, they're being selfish too. A lot of people are being selfish in this regard, because going back to my point that personal health ultimately should outweigh a team sport. I mean, that's what it should be. Like, people need to do what's in their own best interest. I understand that he is part of a league where you're playing with a team. You're part of a team, and you're an important part of that team. You're a key part of that team. You're a key part of that team possibly winning. So I understand it from that side of the coin. You know, people are like, well, if you decide not to get vaccinated and you don't play, that's just gonna fuck up our chances of winning. I get that from well, that's how some people look at it. And I do understand it from that side of the coin, like I said before. But at the same time, people have to do what's in their best interest.
Sorry to cut you off, PAT. That definitely makes sense. So, and I'm not gonna just use, but I'm gonna use something simple, right? You know, I don't see players, and I know Draymond Green talked about this. I ain't never seen a player where basically if their significant other is over there, you know, in a hospital trying to deliver a baby, I ain't never seen players say, "Oh no, we need you to stay so we can win this game." No,
exactly.
Well, Jordan
that was
say,
the point I was making earlier.
It was like, "Yo, go with your significant other and go be there with her and whatnot. We got this and whatnot." See, when the situation changed, you know, it's all cool and gravy. But because of this, everybody's acting like, you know, that you lost your damn mind and whatnot. You know, y'all need to get your asses together. That's what it is. But continue what you have to say.
This was the point I was making earlier when I say I understand that it affects their championship run, right? But they wouldn't be going this hard if someone said they were doing this for religious reasons. They're just doing this because it's Kyrie. Like, if they wouldn't even bother to say to somebody who said they were doing it for religious reasons, well, I'm mad at you and etc., because they know they couldn't.
Right.
They know they shouldn't. And they shouldn't hear. Excuse me. Go ahead, Mr. PAT. Sorry about that.
No, I totally agree. I think if it was for religious reasons, then, you know, people will be hard pressed to go against that, because people aren't just gonna, you know, they're not gonna come at somebody like, well, fuck your religion, you know, don't, like, go get vaccinated. Like, who cares what religion you practice? Like, nobody's saying that. Nobody's gonna say that, you know. But I mean, I'm guessing there's non-religious reasons with Kyrie Irving, so people feel the need to impose themselves and say, well, fuck what you think, just go get vaccinated so we can win this championship. You know, it's pretty much that kind of attitude. But you know, going back to you know, talking about teams and like the, you know, the team sport and whatnot. So the way I look at it, teams can always have a chance to win. However, individuals only have one life to live. Period. Teams will always swap players out. They're going to have different players. You know, all the players that are on one team now aren't going to always be on that team. They're always going to bring in new people. So yeah, a team can always have a chance to win. As long as they have the key players, the key components to win, they'll win. But that individual, and in this case, Kyrie Irving is the individual, he has one life to live. So he has to make choices that are important for him to live. Now, I won't get into any details, but one thing I know is that there have been some people who have gotten the jab and have had adverse reactions. I'm not going to get into if the vax correlates with the adverse reaction or not, but if anybody out there doesn't know, there is a database out there called VAERS, and that's VAERS. The database is called VAERS, which means Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. When you look up there are sites that state that the database contains information on unverified reports. We'll just say that because that's what it says. It says unverified reports, but they're talking about unverified reports of adverse events. In other words, illnesses, health problems, and or symptoms after being injected with the vaccine. Theirs is co-managed by the CDC and the FDA. Now, I brought that up because...
How crazy is that?
Yeah, it's real fucking crazy when you think about it. But I brought that up because there have been reports of adverse events. Now, whether they actually have something to do with the vaccine or not, we can't say for sure. I'm not going to be irresponsible and say, oh, well, I'm 100% sure that, all this is connected. I'm not going to do that. Because even the site itself says that the reports are unverified. And, I'm not going to be irresponsible like that. But the fact is, that's what is happening. People are getting vaccinated. And for one reason or another, who knows what it is, things are happening to these people. Health issues are happening to these people. And I know some personally where they say they, got the jab and they're not feeling right. They're not feeling the same as they were before. They have like a chronic illness or something to that effect. So, it's something for people to look into. I'm gonna just put it like that. But I will say, all we can do is speculate and draw a conclusion as best as we can. Now, me personally, I don't like the sound of someone getting the jab and then having all sorts of health issues later. I can't speak for Kyrie Irving, but I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't like the sound of the adverse event reports. Now, I know other people don't like to hear these types of reports, but the fact of the matter is the reports are out there. If there is a database with multiple reports on adverse events, that's going to put some of us skeptics on edge, and rightfully so. I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to put it bluntly. When a job requires their employees to get the jab, they're pretty much asking their employees to gamble with their life. Now, basically. They're asking their employees to gamble with their life. Now, the pro-vax folks can say that not getting the jab is gambling with one's life, but that is highly debatable. At the end of the day, people can check the data for themselves. It's easy to look up the death rate and the survival rate. See, one of the biggest problems of today is not enough critical thinking. I believe we're all in the predicament that we're in because too many people don't question anything and too many people just willingly follow. Now, as a result, the mandates are here and people's livelihood is being threatened with possible job loss, among other things. I mean, for real, the state that the country is in over this issue is a real disgrace.
Because Joe and the hoe gotta go.
Oh, yeah, they definitely gotta go. They got to go. They got to go. They got to go. That's my spiel on that.
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir. All right, let's throw it to my guy, E-Man, to wrap us up. What say you, sir?
So, before we start and everything like that, like Snoop said, we don't love them hoes. So I'll be like, I agree, because, I just don't.
We can't be saving
hoes. Can't be saving those hoes. So, but before I even get into it, I want to give a shout out to my man Pascal from the Lazy Alkaline LLC and whatnot. By far one of the dopest alkaline chefs out there, and he ships food and whatnot. But that is one of my dopest dudes that in the world and whatnot. Dopest guy in the world. So I had to just put that out there. So I even forgot the question. What's the question? I forgot the question. My bad. I forgot the question.
No problem, sir. Is it fair for Kyrie Irving or anyone else to lose their job over vaccine mandates?
Hells the fucks no. And yes, I said it like that, you know. And the reason why I'm saying it, because mandates are not law. Remember this, all right? These fools are acting crazy because they told everyone we are in a state of emergency, whatnot. Certain states are in a state of emergency. Not all states, not all 50 states are in a state of emergency. That's where everyone's losing their mind. Now they created some another crazy protocol that, you know, now your employer can ask you to get tested weekly and whatnot. I'll go into the whole testing and whatnot, which people really shouldn't be worried about if you can do it yourself and whatnot, because that's what a lot of people have been doing. But you know, they're just adding more and more things, you know, because people are refusing to get the jab and whatnot. They're trying to get people to keep complying to unlawful things and whatnot, you know? And I tell people it's bigger than Kyrie Irving. And for me, I'm not going to say, you know, that like Kyrie Irving is rich people's problems, because to me, it's not my problem, because the simple fact is, like, I don't make millions of dollars playing basketball. He does. But knowing he has probably a great team that helps him invest and do all the great things, so that, that check that he gets is just another investment, not him living off that check and whatnot, you know? So we're just talking about home game. Away games, he should be fine. He should be fine at all, because ain't nobody hitting mandates in Utah and whatnot. You know, I ain't nobody hitting mandates heavily, you know, on, you know, in any other states and whatnot. Only New York has set up this crazy passport thing. Only New York and whatnot. All the other states that so-called say they got surges or whatever they're calling it and whatnot, they just want you to get vaxxed or basically get tested and whatnot. That's it, you know, because they know what they're doing is not law and whatnot. So I don't know what's going on in New York, but New York need to get their life together, and knowing that they're probably going to go through a huge protest. I'm just putting it out there.
They should. And I'm going to say this because I'm originally from New York. Of course, I rep the DMV, but New York, y'all got to hold this L straight up. Y'all got to hold this L, because the mandates, come on, man. I'm going to just say that. Hold that L. You know, New York, I fuck with you. I love New York. But, man, y'all got to hold this L. I'm outrageous. Like that.
It's outrageous.
It
really is.
It is.
It's when you think about it, the fact that it's a blatant disregard for people's constitutional rights to make that decision. They're forcing them to go against their constitutional right to decide not to get the vaccination. Otherwise, they're losing their livelihood. Some Supreme Court judge needs to declare this mandate unconstitutional.
That's all they have to do.
Absolutely. That's what they need to do.
They do. But here comes the thing. If they're not going to do it, that means they put their boys in there to not do it at all. So it means they're breaking the law too. You know, if many people are really paying attention, there's been a lot of political figures and whatnot that have been indicted for a lot of different things. Like an example, that I think Lieutenant General for, you know, Larry Hogan, who's the governor of Maryland, his former Lieutenant General is actually got indicted for fraud and whatnot. So if he got indicted in fraud and he was working under Larry Hogan, you know, don't you think, you know, the governor, your time's coming up too? Because, you know, you can't be having fraud where you're the top guy and then the guy that's supposed to be under you, like your third in command, he's sitting over here committing fraud and whatnot, So it's just been very crazy about the certain things that are going on. That's why I tell everyone you always got to pay attention to everything that's going on, not just what is actually going on. But yeah, New York, you're definitely gonna have to protest. They gave New York until November 4th and whatnot. And I told everybody, all right, I'm waiting for November 4th. All hell gonna break loose and whatnot. So all I know is we got primary elections for local elections, I think November 2nd, I believe. So yeah. So yeah, we New York, you better get ready to party because it's gonna probably be a huge party when November 4th come on, because it don't even make sense. Like here comes the thing, and I'm gonna put in some logic right now. All right. Just imagine if I was, a big unhealthy guy who got vaxxed, right? And I got this card. New York's let me, like, I can go anywhere I can go and whatnot. I'm like, all right, cool, But every time you got into that bar, you definitely got to pay for it. When you go to the gym, you got to pay for it, But let me ask you this. Are you going to the gym every day? Are you going to a bar every single day? Like, you're telling me nothing but vaccinated people can go to anywhere they choose to, but are they going there every single day? And if they're not going there every single day, what logic do you have? So you're telling me that everybody in New York can only serve people who have a vaccination card.
Yeah, that's
you're not even making you're not even making sense behind that.
That's that segregation shit right there.
And just like I just basically told when I interrupted Nine Angel, I said basically that it is discrimination by segregation, because remember, when it comes to discrimination, the origin of the word discrimination, all right, means to distinguish. When you distinguish something, now you have let people know that I like this better than this. No, yes. Fuck you too. It's just basically just stating that you are basically separating one thing from another. COVID has separated vaccinated versus unvaccinated. I told people it will never be a whole black and white thing and whatnot, because psychologically they've already enrooted that into people's like psyche already by mind control. So, but now that's the whole new segregation now, And if they do pull this off, then basically you're going to see signs where it's going to state, oh, only vaccinated people can use the water fountain, but unvaccinated people probably got to go all the way around the corner to go use the water fountain and whatnot, We're getting back to those times. It's just, it's formulated differently. So that they can psych your mind out that basically that, that you are not, I'm not even going to use the word racist, but you're biased and discriminate and whatnot. That sounds better because that's the right term. And when we're going to keep looking at this over and over again and see that you guys are not getting anywhere, Like I've been seeing people put up memes and all this stuff. And like when I hear them speak, I'm like, and when I say only a few things, they lose their mind. Like here's another example. All right. I was on Facebook, right? This dude was talking about, how unvaccinated people and whatnot, like, oh, you're spreading everything like that, and, and like, we need to get vaccinated, then, this shit's going to end. I'm like, just shit's not going to end if everyone gets vaccinated. What kind of shit is that? That don't even make sense.
No, it's not going to end because they're actually talking about booster shots and,
and other more things where they're making money off of. Yep. So I asked the dude, was like, yo, if these shots are not curing anything, why are you telling people to go get a shot and whatnot? You know what his response was? He was like, I don't know, but you know, I never said it was going to cure anything. So if it's not curing nothing, why in the hell are you telling people to go get something that supposedly is supposed to stop a spread and whatnot, you know? But then you guys are mad at Kyrie Irving. I'm like, you guys like picking on athletes because it's so easy to get everyone to zoom in on things that they like and whatnot. What sports is by far the biggest driver in the US and whatnot? And why? Because you got lazy motherfuckers who enjoy beer and sit around and basically just stay, you know, watching television all day, and they be yelling at the television at players that don't know you and whatnot, you know, and know nothing about your life, that you want them to sit here and help your team win a championship, you know? Yeah. They're the ones doing all the work. You just sitting there holding a beer and saying, yay, 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 you know? Yeah. They're out there putting their bodies on the line every day for your little entertainment.
Facts.
Mm-hmm. For your little entertainment.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. For your little entertainment. But then you're mad at him. My man has that right to choose, you know? Like, I tell people like this, like, and I'm going to use another good example, right? Everyone hates, you know, when people find out, you know, that I'm alkaline, you know, and like, you know, I'm really into, you know, the whole alkalinity of like eating right and everything like that, you know? I tell people, I educate people. I don't care if you really, you know, into what I'm into, but you're not going to bash me and whatnot. Like, I don't bash people because you eat meat and whatnot. I just tell people like, yo, it's unhealthy because it's actually dead. I'm not lying. It's dead. When you go to the store, it's dead. It's not alive. You don't see a live cow that when you go to the store and pick up the live cow and you go slaughter it. The thing's dead, you know? But I'm the crazy one, you know? And that's how everything's perceived to Kyrie Irving, you know? Once you give someone a little bit of truth, oh, you're the crazy one. You lost your mind, you know? And it's sad. It really is sad. And I'm gonna just
not to get off subject or interrupt
you,
but the only thing about that is that plants are alive before you pick them, and then they're dead. Just throwing that out there, because plants are living. The actual fruit is, in certain cases, the ovary of the living plant. So when you pick it, you are essentially killing that living item. I think the only reason I mention that anyway, because I'm not opposed. I once was vegan. I'm just clarifying that in that particular argument, there are nuances to that.
And that's what everyone says, which is also true. And then basically when I tell people, I follow up with that even though plants are living things, but the harm to that plant is different from a harm to an animal.
Well, then you're just talking semantics, because some people argue that some people have said that their plants bloom when certain music is played.
Which is true, because they believe in frequency.
Right. So if that's the case, that's an indication that to some extent, plants have a sensory, right? They have a sense of some form of emotion and etc., which one can argue eating plants could be harmful to eating the plant, just as eating meat could be harmful to the animal. Obviously, there's a different variance because, right, to a certain extent, animals have a level of communication, and that's why people are more empathetic to, you know, eating animals. And let me be clear, I've been vegan, vegetarian, and a meat eater. I am not judging any group of folks, but I think that goes back to my original point that people shouldn't be judging Kyrie because Kyrie is making the best decision for him, just like all those individuals in the analogy that I just gave. There are some people whose body are naturally deficient of protein. And yes, while you could get proteins from fruit and vegetables, they would have to eat an extraneous amount to get the same amount that they would eat in, say, a piece of fish. So the entire point that I was just making there is that no one should be judging the lifestyles of others, or at least should care enough about judging the lifestyles of others to the point that they start to impose on those other people's lifestyles. That was the point I was getting to.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead, sir.
No, you're good. Because that was actually where I was leading to. But now, Angel, finish everything when I say, but I'm
definitely
gonna end
some
it.
good points there.
Yeah, and it was really good points. But I'm gonna end it on this. Basically, your job has no control over your personal health. I will repeat this again. Your job has no power over your personal health. The word personal means towards you. That's why when you spell the word personal, it has the word person in it, and a person is a vessel, which is, you. So they don't have control over that, The government has lied to everyone and given them, because the simple fact is, what is the best way to control someone? Put fear into the occupation that they are working into every single day. Because that's what they've been doing. And people you can say whatever you want, but I'm not lying. I'm really not, and whatnot. Because there was and something that was very much interesting, not to take anything from Kyrie Irving, but there was a pilot, and I watched the video, I think on IG, and he said it like this, I've been a pilot for 18 years, and I've had no issues with my job and whatnot, Now I'm being forced to take a shot to come in, to do the same thing that I've been doing for the past 18 years and whatnot, And he said, when that mandate come close, I'm definitely walking out. And the most powerful thing he said was basically, I'm not walking out because of my job. I'm walking out because I have that right and freedom to choose if I want it or not. So he even said that this is bigger than me, And I was like, damn, and whatnot. Because it didn't just hit my heart, but he understands the truth behind, because they will keep taking things if you allow them to take them. But when you stand up against them, that's why they get so angry and mad, Ask everyone. Since this whole thing of vax and unvax, I've been seeing more articles about being unvaccinated. That's telling me you're one-siding the whole story and whatnot. See, my conscience can see that, but others can't. And the reason why is because you're so superficially in their corner. Because why? That's the narrative that you want to stand behind. Why? Because you want to go back to your enclosed bottle of life and you're being into your own bubble and whatnot. And someone bursts your bubble, now you're losing your mind. Now you're forcing and telling people, do this so we can go back and whatnot. So I can go back doing the things I want to do and whatnot, which is selfish. That's selfish. Because I don't know why people calling Kyrie selfish, because supposedly Kyrie has basically donated money to like HBCUs. They've even stated that this man bought a house for George Floyd's mother and whatnot,
Oh, wow. I didn't know that part. I know that I've heard that he's very active in the community, but I didn't know the specific part about George Floyd's mom. That's actually
this is what I've been finding on the net. He gave out, $250K, Thanksgiving meals probably last year. He's donated at least $1.5 million to the women's NBA, he's buying 200 plus kids, Christmas presents. But this is the man they calling selfish because he's choosing not to get some, I'm like, You got to be kidding me, you know? And
yeah, it's bullshit.
Yeah, and this is where the bullshit is. So if Kyrie has to stand up to hold up to his own freedom of his own choice, I respect that. Even with that same pilot and whatnot. And I've told everyone like this: I don't care if you get it or not. It don't bother me. Because here comes the thing: that shot's not harming me. That's harming you. You're gonna have to deal with it. And just to put another piece of information out there, you know, since your employers are forcing anything that you do know your employers, when you taking anything, you know they don't have no liability of any harm that you've done to yourself. And I'm gonna tell everyone like this because I've been a personal trainer for 10 years. I've been a personal trainer for 10 years, and liability is something that I don't play with because this is something I need to know because I will get sued. Like people want to sue people, and personal trainers are easily get sued. So you have to know the game of liability because that's basically what I work with. I'm a customer service entity with liability implications I have to deal with probably daily and whatnot, of many silly things and whatnot, you know? Like your employers, if something happens to you, nothing happens to them. You got to take the whole fall for everything. That's the sad part. They're not trying to tell anybody. But when it happens, that's when everyone's going to start looking at their employer. And you know what they're going to say? They're going to tell you the same shit that I'm telling you and whatnot, you know? So, last final thought and whatnot, leave Kyrie alone. Leave anybody who wants to stand up for their own choice. And that's their choice. And I will respect that choice, no matter what and whatnot, you know? Because I told everyone once November hit, this is when the shit's going to get real. And it's going to get a whole lot real and whatnot. So you're going to really see when shit's falling down. Because they sitting here lying to everyone. Because to me, I know that many people I know since high school, they're telling me, and most of them who are nurses, they're telling me they got shortages in hospitals, which is true and whatnot. They have shortages on the airlines currently right now, which is true and whatnot. Amtrak's probably going to have shortages, you know, with their lines and whatnot. So it's coming and whatnot, you know? So, yeah. So just ending my thought, you know, leave everyone who wants to do their thing and be by your damn self if you need to go get a life and whatnot. And I'm ending my thoughts like that.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. So keeping on that same thread there of sports figures all up in the media right now, let's talk about Mr. Jon Gruden. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, Jon Gruden is the former head coach of the Raiders. I was getting ready to say Oakland, but the Raiders have since moved to Las Vegas. He is the former head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders.
You know what's so funny? You know what's so funny? I'm sorry to cut you off. Jon Gruden has actually coached both Raiders teams that were in Oakland and was now in Las Vegas and whatnot, which is
yes, and he also was a coach for the Bucks. And
he also was one of the head coaches for the Bucks who helped them win their first ever Super Bowl.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when Brad Johnson was quarterback. He had left the Redskins after being there, I think it was like a year or so, or at the time they were called the Redskins, aka the Washington football team.
I think he got traded over there.
He was, so Brad Johnson is who I'm talking about, the quarterback. He was over there for like a year or something. He got cut, went over to Tampa Bay that same year, won the Super Bowl with them. So that speaks to the Washington football team ability to completely fuck up having talent and not utilizing that talent. But I digress.
No, it's all right. But it's very funny about his situation. So he actually started he was actually the Vikings, QB in the mid 90s. But then a guy named Dante Culpepper came in the league and took his spot. No, Cunningham. Randall Cunningham took his spot and whatnot.
Yeah, Culpepper was the quarterback.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, and Cunningham lost his job to Culpepper. That's what it was. But just a cool sports fact.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the specific question is: should anyone be surprised about Jon Gruden's racist emails? So I'm going to throw this to Mr. PAT to start us off. What say you, sir?
So I'll admit, I don't know much about this Jon Gruden guy, but from reading a few articles about,
he's not that special.
Yeah, I figured. I figured. I was like, okay, nah. Yeah, he's not that special. So yeah, I agree. So yeah, I don't know much about him. Don't really care about him either way. But from reading a few articles about his emails, it's pretty clear to me what kind of person this guy is. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I don't watch football. And let me just say this. That's not because I dislike the sport in and of itself, but more so because I see it as the bread and circuses of today. Basically, we're living in the modern day Roman Empire, and people are pacified by food and entertainment while more important matters are taking place. That's basically what bread and circuses means for those who weren't aware.
That's dope. That's true.
Yeah. So basically it's a distraction. I'm gonna just put it like that. It's a distraction. Also, and I'm gonna say something that might be controversial, even though it probably shouldn't be very controversial, because honestly, I'm not the first person who has said this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I see the draft as a modern day slave auction. I'm gonna just put it like that. I see
bingo.
Yeah,
interesting.
I see the draft.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
Well, it's not that I didn't know that. It's just that the key or stark difference for me would be that no slave was paid millions and millions of dollars, whether they performed or not. And in these modern day sports, some of these athletes get millions and millions of dollars, get an injury, and even though they don't get the full balance of their contract, they still get paid millions of dollars and never have to worry about money again. And that was never the case in the slave trade.
Well, yeah, it's not exactly the same, of course, but it's the I'm gonna say the visual aspect of it. Of course, the differences, there are differences, because obviously money is in the NFL, and of course slaves weren't paid. We know that's the
only difference,
right? That's pretty much the only difference, at least from my vantage point, anyway.
Yeah, you got to look at things when things modernize. It's supposed to be like a nostalgic and whatnot. It's supposed to be like, well, so put it like this. So back when our ancestors were being enslaved, they were being sold, they wasn't getting paid, and they were getting raped, incest, and things of that nature. Right. Now we look at the way now it's modernized now, we formulate it into an arena, where you have owners, then you have these people who have money, then you have they're gladiators, so they need equipment, they need some type of safety stuff, the pads, the helmets, and all that other stuff, right? Now when you add money into play, you have to keep your, wouldn't say, it's almost like how they kept the slaves, wouldn't say happy, but somewhat content, where they feed them the scraps.
No slaves were content. And that's my issue with these kind of comparisons. Yeah. It is a completely different world. I think those kind of comparisons are used inappropriately. There are no freedoms. There was no decision making. There was no consciousness or availability or ability to make any kind of decision over your life in general with slavery. These athletes choose to go into these arenas. A lot of them are in college or etc. when they're drafted. They could very well choose to stay in college and get a degree. They choose to become an athlete because of the money. That's a choice. Slaves didn't have choices. And if you look at the argument, yeah, but once they agree to that contract, they basically got to follow the terms. That's the way any job works. When you take a job, you agree to follow the terms of that job. It's for me, those two things just don't equate, because there are entirely too many freedoms with being an athlete that came nowhere near close to slavery. Slavery, in my opinion, was just too atrocious to equate to anything modern.
Slaves
were cattle.
It's hard to say the word freedom, but I would say they have what you call, in my eyes, I like to call conditioned freedom, because
that's true.
In the way you look at it,
is not equivalent to slavery. There was no term of freedom in slavery. People were trying to escape and being caught and killed. Any form of freedom whatsoever means it's not equivalent to slavery. Slaves didn't have that option. They had no options. They could not decide their lives. They could not decide their children. They could not decide their marriages. They had no freedoms. They were seen as livestock. They were seen as property. Mm-hmm. These people are electing to be in these lifestyles, and they're being paid millions of dollars for it.
Which is basically, I'm sorry, PAT, but which is true, but it's being modernized. So when you take something onto a new form, you have to change it where it doesn't look like something, but it is.
I was going to get into that. Yep.
Yeah, but I'm gonna let you continue.
Still doesn't equate though. That's you can modernize or evolutionize a lot of things. Slavery is not one of them. You can claim, I see the point that you're getting at, that they don't have the ability to make the full decisions they want to. Okay, that's fair. But that doesn't equate to slavery, because they're not being chained. They're not being forced to eat a certain way, sleep a certain way, and killed at will, and it's all legal. So those major parts of slavery negates the ability to use being an athlete as an analogy to it.
They might be pretty soon, based upon some of the football players who are not trying to get the job. But I'm gonna let PAT, finish his thought.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a great conversation to have. And I mean, and I see where you're coming from, Naya, but E-Man already broke it down. So when the comparison to slavery is made, it's not saying, oh, well, it's exactly like, back when there was like slavery, slavery, like, and I'm gonna be real, we're still enslaved to this day. Honestly, we're all still slaves. But the thing is, it's different. It's modernized, as E-Man already stated. We're in a system of modern day slavery. So slavery is just took on a new form. Basically, it's never going to be the same as what it was in the past. Of course, we know the atrociousness of the past, and we understand that history. But now I
can tell you why.
We're in the present day. We're in the future. We're in the present day where it's different. It's modernized, and it's just adjusted to today's times.
I understand the point. I disagree with the analogy. It's not the appropriate analogy to make. There will be no way to make an appropriate analogy to slavery unless you're talking about the Holocaust. That is the only thing that is equivalent to slavery, and close to equivalent to slavery. And the reason I say that is because I understand the point you're making. You're saying that you're saying there are certain conditions that are being imposed on people for taking that contract, right? They still don't get to be 100% free. That's fine. It's still not an equivalent analogy to slavery, though. There will never be an equivalent analogy to slavery, no matter whether you say it's the modernized version or not, because there was never, and there never will be, another event in the history of man as atrocious as slavery. And you can't just take the parts of it that you want to compare. It was too drastic and dire of a situation to do that.
So sorry to cut you off now, Andrew, but I remember I said this in a few episodes, or I think I said it, early down when we first started, but you always have to remember that they can only handle a little bit of chaos, but they can't handle mayhem. Because once mayhem hits, that's when shit gets out of control. So they have to make sure to control everything. Chaos must happen. That's why they control people with fear. Right. They can give chaos because that's something you can pull in and out, but you cannot control mayhem. Yeah,
but what does that have to do with the inappropriate analogy to slavery? I understand your point. You're saying that the reason that they can't fully go back to slavery is because it would be mayhem, and they know they can't control mayhem. I get that. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it's still an inappropriate analogy to slavery, because nothing will ever be able to equate to slavery. If you're saying they're in a state of still not allowing full freedom to a certain extent in that role, I agree with that. But that's still not equivalent to slavery. What I'm trying to say is, in my opinion, for lack of a better term, it's somewhat disrespectful to slavery to compare it to anything we're facing in modern times, because there's parts of similarities don't mean equivalency. So if you were to say that we're in modern day slavery because athletes can't do 100% of what they want to do when they are being paid millions of dollars, LeBron James is a fucking billionaire. There will never have been any slave that was ever a billionaire. And again, I understand the core of what you're saying, that to a certain extent, they're not allowed their 100% freedom, but no job allows for that. Even when you are the CEO of your own company, you still can't say certain shit because you'd be sued. You still can't do certain things because there are consequences. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying in that regard. But so let me put it like this. So let's just strip it down let's just strip it down bare bones to the minimum. So when I say like the NFL or the NBA or whatever is like, I guess like a modern day slavery or the slave auction or whatever.
Most I'm people say plantation
or the plantation. I'm looking at it as, so we have white owners and we have these, well, in this case, black athletes that are working for white owners. That's what I mean when I say strip it down to the bare bones. We're still in a dynamic of white owners and black servitude.
But so those servitude, they're making that choice to serve. Slaves didn't have a choice to serve.
Right. And that's true. But it's just, I'm looking at the optics. I'm just looking at the optics. It's not necessarily about, saying one's exactly like the other. Because of course there's differences. There's going to be the differences because of the times. But when we look at slavery, it's just basically saying you don't have freedom. Like you don't have freedom. And really in these days and times, we don't. We do, but we don't. We're still in a time of modern day slavery.
You still have to have a template to start something.
Have you all ever looked up the definition of slavery?
Yeah.
Okay. It means bondage, enslavement, servitude, subjugation, thraldom, vassalage, enthrallment, yoke, captivity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
these words do not apply to people who choose to be in that lifestyle.
Actually, it is. Actually, it's just.
We're still in captivity.
No,
that's a whole other thing.
It still is, but it's modern.
Everyone, if that's the, but I again, I understand what you're saying about modern day, but what I'm saying is I chose the role that I'm in, and I know that there is a contract that's associated to my job. Just like even when you start a business, right? Depending on the business type you select, you know there are rules and regulations within that business type that you select, say, whether you're a sole proprietor or LLC or etc., but you're still the owner of your own business. That is not a fortune that anyone who was a slave would have had, is what I'm trying to say.
I mean,
right, yeah, slaves back then, of course, yeah, back then, no, they couldn't have any of that stuff. They couldn't work. I mean, they couldn't have jobs. They couldn't, own a business. They couldn't do anything. So when we say slaves back then, like there was a different slavery back then and there's a different slavery now. I think that's what me and E are trying to get across.
Yes, and I agree with that there is a difference between slavery then and slavery now. And that's my point, that because there is a difference, because of the world we're in now, it's an inappropriate analogy. That's my point.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
it's a different world.
Yeah,
it is. That we can agree on. We can agree it's definitely a different world.
That is different. But before I wouldn't say, sorry to cut you off, BAT. But what I wanted to say basically, and I think I already said it before, but you need a template for like almost anything that you build and create. Without that template, I wouldn't say you can't see what you're trying to grow, but it helps you build for the next thing and whatnot.
Sure.
And everything had a template to every single thing, like, and here comes the craziest thing. And I'm going to use something as simple as like the slave trade and whatnot, the Arabs started the slave trade and whatnot,
right.
England was broke. UK was broke. They were so broke to the point that they convinced the Arab, let's jump in the slave trade with them. And that's how someone started a template and boom, they got others to join in. Because why?
But the difference is now we can create our own templates where we didn't, using your own example, you're absolutely right. But the difference is now we have the ability to create our own template when back then we didn't. You're right.
Thing.
It's great
but they
to have
had a template to start with. That's how.
But that wasn't what you said originally, though. Your example of the template, and you need it to outline what you're trying to accomplish, right? You're absolutely right. But the difference between then and now is that now we have the ability to create our own templates as opposed to being forced to follow one. In other words, these athletes are not forced to sign these contracts.
They're not.
They're electing to. So by doing that, they are voluntarily giving up their rights to certain things. If they don't want to do that, I understand it's big money, but again, that's a part of what they're accepting. If they don't want to do that, they don't have to. Stay in college, get your degree, go into another line of work. You are choosing to be subjugated to certain stuff. Well, if you are choosing to do that, then you can't turn around and cry wolf. You made that decision.
A lot of them do though. That's
exactly. Now that I agree with you with wholeheartedly.
And
that's true.
And that's how you create from, and that's and just me just going back from the whole template thing. They already have one, but to keep bettering something, you have to make sure you add and change certain things to your template to keep growing what you have. And that's
totally
what's
agree
mostly
with
been
that
going.
too.
That's what's mostly been happening. So that's what it is. Because, you know, many people tend to forget that, you know, slavery, everyone, they showed us what physical slavery looks like. No one talks about how the mental slavery is. No one talks about how the psychiatric of like slavery and whatnot, because, you know, the mind itself is extremely powerful.
No, I agree with that, but that wasn't exactly the point that I was agreeing with what you said before. You're correct that you have to keep changing the template and adapting it in order to reach its best version. And my point with that is we have the ability to do that now. We didn't have the ability to adapt and change slavery back then. We couldn't say, hey, slave master, we don't like the way you're doing things. We don't like the way you're forcing us to pick this cotton. We want to pick this cotton and
if you think about it, like with the slave revolts and things like that, there was still a pushing for a change. So what happened?
That was a pushing for freedom.
Right, for freedom.
That wasn't a pushing for a change to slavery. That was a pushing from freedom from the slavery.
Right, but with that push for the freedom, what happened was there was still adjustments to the template. So when these slave masters see slaves basically keep on fighting their enslavement, and it becomes too much for them, eventually they say, okay, what can we do to adjust this so we can still keep them enslaved, but have them not fight their enslavement?
But that wasn't what ended slavery. What ended slavery was one of their needs to actually use Black people to fight in the army. Like, let me be clear. Abraham Lincoln didn't release slaves because they kept fighting against it and they wanted to, just be done.
I mean, they were fighting.
He released slaves so that slaves can fight in the Union and defeat
so they can fight for the Union. Yeah. No, all that's true. But the fact is, slaves were still fighting. They were fighting their enslavement. Yeah, they were enslaved, but they were fighting their enslavement, and that's a disruption.
No, I totally agree with that, but that wasn't what my concern was. All of these points you all are making are valid points, but that wasn't what my concern was. My concern was with the analogy that athletes of today are modern day slaves. I disagree with that terminology. That's the only part. The other parts are valid. I totally agree with that. It's just my individual opinion is that.
Okay.
And we could definitely agree to disagree on that point. Mm-hmm. My whole thing was basically where I was going with it was so I mentioned the slave auction. I wasn't necessarily trying to get too deep off into like slavery in and of itself.
Right, yeah, that one was on me, sir.
Okay, yeah, because that's why I said the slave auction, because I was like, okay, well, this is kind of, and I'm looking at the optics. That's what I'm looking at. It's the optics of white owners and these Black men who are under these white owners. That it was just the optics I was looking at.
Yeah, I can see the optics side of it. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's why I mentioned, like, okay, this is reminding me of, it's basically like a modern day slave auction. So that's why I brought that up. But,
yes, optically, I agree. I see you, sir. I feel you.
Yeah. So that's pretty for the listeners out there. That's where I was going with that. Because basically we see white coaches recruiting a majority of Black athletes. White owners, Black, we'll say workers in this case. So of course, that's one thing that is a turnoff for me. I'm gonna speak for myself. Aside from that, everything that took place with Colin Kaepernick really disgusted me. I'm gonna just put that out there. So that really just turned me off, because when it comes to football, we'll just say the NFL. When it comes to the NFL, even though I wasn't like an avid watcher of it, I would still tune in from time to time. And I did used to watch the Super Bowls. And the reason I would watch them is just to be in the know, pretty much. You Yeah, because I didn't want to be one of those people that came into work and, you know, people were talking about who won the Super Bowl and I didn't know who won, you know, I didn't know who won or who lost. I just wanted to be in the know, like, okay, these are the two, you know, teams playing in the championship. Let me see who's the winner. Let me see who's the loser. That way, when people talk about it, I know what the fuck people are talking about. That was pretty much my role in that. But the whole situation with Kaepernick really turned me off. So I was basically like, fuck NFL. You know, that's pretty much what my attitude was. Because at that point, I was like, okay, I see the NFL's true colors. I see what's going on here. So let's just be real. Racial justice is not something that they care about. The owners really don't care. Yeah, they don't. And I mean, it is what it is. I'm not asking.
Kaepernick still won at the end of the day. He got his $20 million contract from Nike, though. But that's a whole nother story. But
yeah. And me, with me saying that, I'm not asking them to care. I don't really give a fuck if they care or if they don't. I'm just stating, you know, a fact. They don't care about racial justice. You know, we know the owners don't care. It's clear as day to me. You had one of the owners, I believe it was Bob McNair, quote, inmates running the prison. I remember when that statement was made and I was like, man, that's really fucking atrocious. You got a white owner basically calling players like prisoners.
Bob McNair is a very Southern guy. Like he's the owner. He's actually the owner of the Tennessee Titans when they were called the Oilers. But he one of those deep down South like guys. So yeah, he'll say something like that.
So he's an open racist. He's pretty much just,
basically.
Once I heard that, I was like, oh, this is one of them. This is the overt racist right here. Okay, all right. You got your covert and you got your overt. He's on the overt side of the equation. Got it. So yeah, I heard that and I was like, oh, so that that's how they look at NFL players now. Okay, they, you know, talking about inmates running the prison. All right, dude. Oh, all right. So, you know, when I heard that, I was like, I can only imagine what other owners have said and are still saying. You know, obviously at this point, we know the NFL has racist people in it. There's no doubt about that. So Jon Gruden's emails doesn't surprise me at all. I'm pretty sure there are owners and coaches and other NFL employees who are circling the wagons right now and trying to get rid of any suspect emails.
Jerry Jones.
I'm pretty sure.
Jerry Jones.
Sure that's happening right now.
Jerry Jones.
All these motherfuckers are probably circling the wagons right now. That's
Jerry Jones.
Yeah. Awesome opinions.
Jerry Jones.
Yep. So
I'm not a Cowboys
We're not
fan.
making any specific accusations against Jerry Jones. Just an FYI.
But you know, if something comes up,
I'm allegedly making these accusations.
You know, but so when someone like Jon Gruden gets caught and then apologizes, let's be real here, people. People like him apologize because they got caught. They don't apologize because they're actually sorry about what they said. It's not even just about him. That's why I said people like him. People like him apologize because they got caught. They don't apologize because they're actually sorry about what they say or what they said. I mean, how many times have we heard about these white folks in high positions make racist statements and then apologize after they get caught? You know how I know they're not truly sorry about what they said? Because if they were truly sorry, they would step forward themselves. They would step forward themselves, not waiting until they get caught. And they would speak on what they said in the past and they would try to atone for it. But see, that's not how it works. They try to basically they go into damage control afterwards. Yeah, that's what happens. They go into damage control. You know, they get busted, and then basically they want to save face. So yeah, they're not sorry about saying racist things. They're just sorry that their racism has been exposed. That's what they're sorry about. And just to really end this off, end off my part of it anyway, I've always said that until Black people actually start owning organizations, this type of thing won't stop. Racist people being exposed is just an endless cycle at this point. It's just one big endless cycle. I mean, just wait and see. Someone else will get caught making racist remarks, and they will probably apologize because they were caught. You know, rinse, recycle, repeat. The fact of the matter is, and when I say we, I'm talking about Black people. Black people don't own anything. So as a result, we will always deal with people who are racist. We seriously deal with this type of problem by owning our own organizations. That's how you deal with racism. In this case, there would need to be a Black-owned football league, and the Black players of the NFL would have to leave the NFL and play for the Black Football League. I understand and understand that what I just said sounds crazy to people, but people, it's the truth. Black people will not be able to get away from this problem until we extract ourselves from these organizations and build our own. It's really that simple. And I'm going to just end it right there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks a bunch. All right. So, should anyone be surprised about Jon Gruden's racist email? As Pat said, no. I mean, of course not. I'm never surprised when racists emerge from any public figure. I mean, it's crazy that people act like bigotry doesn't exist amongst celebrities. Of course it does. It's actually my understanding that in Jon Gruden's case, there are also misogynistic and homophobic comments in these emails as well. i.e., he is overall a bigot and clearly has been for many years. I mean, okay, so many people have the argument like these emails were from many years ago and people can grow. And to a certain extent, I agree with that. However, the other side of that is just because there aren't any current proofs of it doesn't mean he's not still currently a racist, homophobic, misogynist. There's just no current proof of it. How do we really know he's changed? Because he coaches Black players? Okay. Well, everyone literally coaches Black players. What the fuck? Like literally. There isn't one professional team in the NFL that doesn't have at least 2 Black players on it. We make up the backbone of the players' conglomerate for the NFL. For most sports, actually. What, basketball, football, almost baseball? I mean, come on. The argument he coaches Black people, he's not racist, they do that. Shut the fuck up. Everybody coaches Black people in the NFL. Black people are the majority of the team. We don't have any evidence that Jon Gruden is sorry, other than he said sorry. And he said sorry after the emails were exposed, not prior to. He didn't come out and say, hey, guys, I have an atonement to make here. You know, back then I was a racist asshole. And before any emails come out proving that, let me just go ahead and say I apologize or let me expose them myself. He didn't do that because he's not actually fucking sorry. He apologized because he was exposed. He stepped down because he was going to get fired. It's that simple. That's all it is to it. His behavior exudes overall bigot, not just racism, but also misogyny. homophobia. This man is generally a white man who feels he's superior to anyone that doesn't fall into his lifestyle. His category of superiority is I'm a white man and gays and women and Black people are beneath me. It's that simple. And anyone who's denying it is choosing to be ignorant on this subject because there is no evidence to suggest that he is evolved into something better. He coached Black people. Of course he fucking did. It was his job to do it. Period. And he couldn't really avoid it in the NFL now, could he? I mean, this is very cut and dry for me. Now, let's evaluate the evidence specifically, right? He was first recently called out for racist emails, and then per an article on Fox Sport News, and I quote, the New York Times then released more emails showing Gruden's keyword there, of homophobic and misogynistic remarks, along with comments aimed at Roger Goodell himself. Roger Goodell, quick note for those who don't know, is the commissioner of the NFL. The emails were between him and then Washington football team president Bruce Allen during his time at ESPN. So even when Gruden wasn't specifically coaching players, he was a commentator, he was still making all of these fucking comments and etc. That shows it doesn't matter what position or role he in, this is how he feels, folks. Period. This is his behavior. It doesn't matter the role he plays in the NFL. He's a bigot. He can kiss my ass. I don't give a shit about his apology. I don't give a shit about him resigning. I don't give a shit if he's sorry. Your sorry came after you were exposed, not prior to. Another article says, only a few days after a first email was leaked that caught Gruden using racist language, more emails surfaced showing that Gruden mocked the drafting of the first openly gay player in NFL history, did not support the emergence of women in the NFL as officials, and vulgarly used the female anatomy as an insult, and called for the release of players protesting during the national anthem. Come on, what are we talking about? Let's be serious. Quit the fucking bull. This guy is clearly a racist, bigot, homophobic, misogynic asshole, and I don't give two shits about his apology. It's that simple. This is his own behavior. There's evidence of this in his own behavior. These are not, accusations that people are making against him. There are emails. That's documentation of it. It wasn't even like he solely left it at making these comments amongst friends. He didn't give a shit so much that he put this shit in emails and sent it across the web. Now you telling me in 2000 and when the fuck ever these came out, people didn't know that when you send something across the web, you're documenting it essentially? There's always a way to pull that shit back. You telling me it wasn't enough understood about the way that computers worked in 2011? Yes, the fuck it was. He simply didn't care. Because he thought he was communicating with a fellow bigot and it would never get out. So yeah. Am I surprised? Should anyone be surprised? No. And from this big lip Black person, he can kiss my ass. Those are my thoughts on that.
That's a really big ass to kiss, though. Just saying.
Well, he can kiss my ass because, yeah, that's how I feel about it. Throwing it to E-Man to wrap us up. What say you, sir?
Okay. I wanted to come in here with a flair, but I don't know with like y'all really definitely, y'all did. Whew, man, I gotta come in a little harder for this one. So am I shocked or even surprised? Hell no.
Right.
I'll put it like this.
Surprised.
Yeah. Anything that happens in the NFL is no longer shocking nor surprising.
Right.
And I'm not gonna and sorry to digress, but I'm not gonna piggyback off like the whole Ray Rice situation, but just looking at how that situation went down, it just basically shows like they know everything. They're just waiting to get you and whatnot. I just feel like the NFL are like comedians. They got all the information on y'all. And when they're ready to get your ass, they be like, ha ha ha, nigga, I got you and whatnot, Yeah. How Dave Chappelle would do it, But that's how I feel what it is with the NFL, So like, one thing I tell everyone is it's your opinion, and how you choose to formulate your own opinion is up to you, Just like how when I say things on here, these are my opinions. People might hate it. I'm like, all right, cool. People might love it. I'm like, all right, cool. But I know, for me, like when it comes to me, I'm cool with anything that comes out my mouth. So I'm definitely cool with it. It don't bother me and whatnot. Don't bother me at all. And, some of these guys, they can't control their own actions, knowing there's always going to be a reaction behind it because they work. I don't want to say work, but they are attached to a brand or an entity that controls everything you do in your moves and whatnot, And I've actually talked about this with several people, but in my eyes, is the NFL becoming a little soft? Yes, and whatnot, And what I mean by soft, not just them playing, but they're pushing the edge, not on every issue, but they're trying to draw a separation of issues. And what I mean by that is that they're picking and choosing each situation to separate our minds based upon what narrative that they want. And this is one of them. Ray Rice was another one. The list goes on and on and on. Though I wouldn't say what the worst one was, but the one that was extremely shocking. And I'm not going to throw Dante Stallworth, under the bus, but Dante Stallworth, I think at the time he was playing for the Browns. He ran somebody over and whatnot. He did receive jail time, but it was pretty short jail time and whatnot. And he was able to come back and play in the NFL for the Patriots for a brief stint. And I think, for a brief stint, because he played for the Saints, the Browns, and the Patriots, because he was part of that huge Super Bowl and whatnot. So yeah, but yeah, it's just one of those things, and because remember, the NFL controls their narrative, I mean, I don't care if he calls them, and this whole thing with the whole homophobic thing, it's just someone says one word, everyone's like, oh my damn, it's the end of the world, And, and I don't know why people are shocked that, oh my gosh, Jon Gruden talks like this. I'm like, okay, he's an adult. He can formulate what he wants to talk about, and he can say everything, what he wants to say. But many people tend to forget, like when you see him on ESPN, all that stuff is scripted, they're told what to say and whatnot while they're on ESPN. They're told what to say, what's going on. They're told what to say, So him writing stuff in emails, I'm like, well, of course they can track emails. I mean, once I send somebody an email, boom, it's like it's already a documentation already, So it's not that hard to find because you can search for email by words, letters, even letter heads, and you can still, retrieve that email. So it's not hard. But to say like this wasn't coming, well, it was coming. But hey, who was the big winner out of the day? Was it the NFL or was it Jon Gruden? Because at the end of the day, Jon still got money, and I feel like Jon's gonna be okay. So him losing this don't mean shit. That's the same thing that Paul Pierce did with this whole ESPN debacle and whatnot, with the whole stripper thing and whatnot. It seemed like he didn't mean shit. He wanted to just make a stance and make a point. But Jon, will Jon be okay? He'll be okay. Ain't nothing happened to him. He'll be okay. Do I feel like he might lose another job? I doubt it. Who knows? You might see him on College Day or ESPN pretty back soon. So, I mean, NFL coaches gotten fired, not for saying bad things, but they got fired for having poor records and whatnot, and they easily got jobs back. Jon Gruden can still go coach in college football. So he has options. He has options. And here comes the thing I'm about to shock everyone. Do you know an average college coach, head coach, their average salary is about $3 million a year and whatnot? That's their average, average. Jon Gruden had a 10-year deal, almost worth close to damn near, I think, I forget what it was. It was like almost $100 million contract, whatnot. So I think he was getting paid close to almost 10 mil and whatnot. I mean, that's water under the bridge for him, but he probably has a lot more money from coaching when he first started, back in the mid 90s. So, it's not even a loss and whatnot. He gonna find somewhere, he'll be okay. And that's what it's gonna be, and then everyone's gonna forget about it and whatnot. And basically he'll reappear again back and doing the same thing he is. Because for them, there's no consequence for them. Zero. Because if it was an actual consequence, then Jon would actually get, I don't like to use the word canceled, but he would get canceled like how you guys cancel other people and whatnot. But that's not happening. So, it's more like, I would say, I'm going to end it on this. And I'm trying to put the words together that make sense to everyone. All right. No one gives a shit what Jon Gruden did, but Jon is not taking any real repercussions. He's really not. He just lost his coaching job and whatnot. He can go get another one. That's why he has an agent for. He'll go get another one. It's not it's not like he's boom, everything's done. Because there are thousands and millions of colleges that have football teams, Division 1, 2, and 3. And he's a hot coaching name. He won a Super Bowl with the same team that won a Super Bowl last year, which I find that interesting that he's in hot water, but yet his team, his his former team he won the Super Bowl with, is actually playing good. Nah, that's just me. But to really say this was to make it a loss and whatnot, I would say Jon Gruden would basically, be blackballed from coaching jobs for the rest of his life. But that's not happening, So, John says what he wants to say because they know he can get away with anything he chooses to say, But let that be another person, and you will see what the outcome's going to be and whatnot, And to me, that's just what goes on. I just call it's like another day in the NFL, like another day at work. That's how I feel what it is. It's just another day. So I'm gonna end it from there. It's just another day for Jon Gruden, and
yes, sir.
Love loss. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Okie dokie. All right, thank you, sir. So to wrap us up on this session, fellas, we definitely have a very hot subject to speak on. And it is Mr. Dave Chappelle. So for our listeners out there who aren't aware, Dave Chappelle is back in the news again because, Dave Chappelle basically can't stay out of the news.
That's my nigga.
Yeah. And we're talking about, should Dave Chappelle apologize to the LGBTQ community or be canceled? I'm sorry?
Hell the fuck no.
Or be canceled. So for those of you who are not aware, Dave Chappelle is in the news, in the media. He's in hot water for some comments that was made on his latest comedy special. And forgive me, I think I said that the backwards way around. It is LGBTQ. Want to make sure I clarify that.
Make sure you add that P too. Add the P.
You were throwing me off. I was like, wait, what? At first I was looking at it, I was like, wait, what? Okay. So No, I got it. LGBTQ. Okay. So
P, you gotta add the P after the Q.
Okay, what's the P stand for?
I'll let you know.
Oh, Lord.
Shit.
Okay.
I know what it stands for.
Oh,
you sure you know what it stands for? But yeah.
Again, LGBTQ community, okay, which stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. Okay. So the official question is, should Dave Chappelle apologize to the LGBTQ community or be canceled? So I'm going to go ahead and start us off in this one. And, honestly, in my opinion, this is probably going to be the stickiest situation we're going to discuss tonight because, as you all know, I am very much an advocate for human rights in general, i.e., all human beings have an inalienable right to the pursuit of happiness, and no one has the right to impose on that in any way. However, that's just the thing. I don't feel that Dave did impose on that in any way. He did not incite violence or hate towards the LGBTQ community in any way in that special, in my opinion. In fact, in the same special he's being crucified for, Netflix is standing firmly behind him on it, even knowing that they will face backlash from the LGBTQ community for supporting him.
I think
they made the following statement.
Oh, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but there's an employee that works for Netflix that is basically transgender who basically pushed this on Dave Chappelle. But I'm just putting.
Yes, I know. That's a part of my
Oh, I'm
commentary.
sorry.
But yes,
See,
no, you're fine. You're absolutely correct. There is an employee who is transgender. Actually, a group of them are protesting and have set up a protest about this. But in reference to that statement I was making, which was basically that Netflix is standing behind them, here's their comment. We don't allow titles on Netflix that are designed to incite hate or violence. And we don't believe The Closer, which is the name of Dave Chappelle's show, crosses that line. I recognize, however, that distinguishing between commentary and harm is hard, especially with stand-up comedy, which exists to push boundaries. This was what Sarandos wrote to staff. Sarandos, I believe, is the president of Netflix. Some people find the art of stand-up to be mean-spirited, but our members enjoy it. And it's an important part of our content offering. And so to that end, I totally agree. I mean, stand-up comedy and what's funny or not is in the eye of the beholder. Do you know how many jokes are aimed at women and how annoying we can be as wives and etc.? Imagine if all the wives of the world went on strike against any comedian who said something about our behavior as wives. That's crazy. I mean, unless someone specifically said, go out and kill or hate or harm all the wives of the world, there's no point in going to war over these jokes. If you don't like them, you simply don't support the comedian. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying I don't understand the argument that jokes are normally based in truth and that's what makes them funny, because I do. But that's the other point. What Dave said was how he feels about them. They're his truths and opinions on the matter. And even if you don't agree with his viewpoints, you can't force him to like you or your lifestyle or agree with how you feel about it.
Correct.
The point is, he's not imposing on your right to live as you see fit. He didn't incite hate or violence towards the LGBTQ community in any way. There are certain parts of it where he specifically says he is not imposing on anyone's right. The jokes were based on his feelings about it. He has joked about everyone of every creed one way or the other. It's what he does. It's who Dave Chappelle is.
I agree.
So, in summation, it's simple. If you ask me, should Dave apologize? I say only if he sees fit. And of course, I do not believe he sees fit because he said that much. Because again, he was not particularly out to harm anyone in that community. If they were offended by his jokes, that's unfortunate. But a lot of people are offended by his jokes. A lot of people are offended by stand-up comedian jokes in general. They
y'all
are
not take a damn joke. That's the reason why. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine, E-Man. You're right. The entire point of stand-up comedy is to make jokes based on real life, to bring humor to those situations, because that's how some people alleviate that situation. I mean, do you know what the George Collins of the world were like? Do you have any, the Richard Pryors, the Red Foxes of the world? Do you know what these people were like back then? George Carlin, who was a white man and was clearly not homophobic, he was known to be an advocate, would say some of the craziest shit about all groups of people. I didn't see people rushing to cancel George Carlin.
That too.
Richard Pryor was another one. Richard Pryor held no fucking cut cards. He did not care about your feelings. Anyone could get it.
Even the crackers.
Yeah, it's a different time. No one was off limits back then, and no one took it to trying to cancel those folks. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that when someone does something that they do need to be accountable for, that we don't hold them accountable. Of course we do. Accountability is an important part of life. And I do think that some people equate cancel culture to being held accountable. Personally, I think that if you are responsible for actions that cause you to have to be held accountable for them, you got to fucking own that. But the point is, that's not what happened here. His behavior was normal for Dave Chappelle as a comedian. It was intended to be comedic. I understand that it may have been found offensive, but 99% of his work is offensive. On his show, he had a running character who was a black crackhead named Tyrone Briggs. Did all black people want to cancel Dave Chappelle just because he had a black crackhead on the show?
No, it because the man's name was Tyrone.
And I'm just saying, like, that's my point. Like, where did you see a whole bunch of black people protesting his show because he had a black character who was a crackhead named Tyrone Briggs? I think.
No, what they did was they told Erykah Badu to go call Tyrone. That's what they said.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. The whole entire situation is ridiculous. Do I believe Dave Chappelle is a bigot towards the LGBTQ community? Absolutely not. He's made several comments that suggest that he doesn't give a shit what people do with their lives. He simply was stating his opinions about it. And people don't like that he wasn't 100% in agreement with it. It's like the specific argument where I have said many times before, and again, I want to reiterate this. I am 100% a human rights activist, meaning that human beings have the right to live their lives as they see fit. But one of the issues that I hold with certain people is when they say, well, as a cisgender woman, you should have no problem calling yourself cisgender because in the transgender community, they want to use another terminology for themselves. My thing is, honey, use whatever terminology you deem fit. I will 100% respect that. But you cannot force me to change how I view myself to fit your requirements. You are now imposing on my rights. And that's my point. Regardless of what side it comes from, no one has the right to impose on anyone else's rights. And people make the arguments, well, if you're in support of it, then why wouldn't you support it and do it and etc. Again, I can be in support of something without totally agreeing with all parts of it, all facets of it. Because what I'm in support in is I don't give a fuck if someone wakes up and decides they want to marry that goddamn tree. I don't care. They can marry the tree. My problem is when someone comes and wants to be violent or rude or hateful or hurt them because they want to marry the tree. That's what I have a problem with. So for me, to sum up, to answer the question, should Dave Chappelle apologize? If he wants to, is my opinion on that. Should he be canceled? Absolutely fucking not. He didn't do anything that was violent or hateful towards that community. He simply disagreed with a certain opinion related to it. He did not incite violence towards or incite hate towards it. Those are my thoughts on the matter. I'm going to throw it to E-Man. What say you, sir?
Dave Chappelle. All right, before I start, all right, throw out the, what's that thing, the disclaimer and whatnot. Throw it out there.
Well, honestly, I've said it a few times, but again, I'll make clear that, again, these are our individual opinions on the matter, and that honestly, even though we have some difficult conversations and what some may deem controversial, no one here on The Good, the Bad, and the Truth wants to see any violence or hate or any other bigot, offense, or act occur against anyone for any lifestyle that they may choose. Everyone has the right to live their life as they see fit. We are firm believers to each their own, and we would never incite or support in any way any kind of violence, hate, or any other inappropriate behavior towards anyone for the lifestyle they choose. That's not just a disclaimer. That's real. That's who we are as individuals. That's not the point of us stating how we feel about something in our opinions. Just
thank you so much, because it seems like for me, I'm always hitting feathers, and I'm never ruffling chips and whatnot. So first things first, I'm gonna put it out there, because for me, I speak truth. So, this LGBTQP community, it's based off, I would say it's all based upon towards your sexual identity / sexual orientation. All right. Yeah. And that's the truth. That is the truth. All right. But yet this community / group feel like they're God's the green earth and whatnot, Dave even said it in his special and whatnot, the baby can go shoot somebody. That shit don't bother nobody. But let him say one thing about a trans, everyone sits here and like falls out, like heaven just fell out the sky and the world's about to end and whatnot, And I'm like, damn, and whatnot. Because it is true. Because I've already seen it already. I see it every single time when I'm sitting here reading articles to the news, picking up on these stories and whatnot, And that's the thing that they need to get a grip and whatnot. You really do and whatnot. Dave's a comedian. So if you can't take a fucking joke, then go sit your ass in a corner then. I'm damn serious. Go sit yourself in. There's a reason why he calls himself a comedian. It's supposed to be a comedy show and whatnot. It's supposed to be funny and whatnot. Everyone's so goddamn serious about a comedy show. Nobody wants to laugh anymore. Everyone got their panties up in a brunch and whatnot. It's feeling so tight that you got the wedgie all in between your legs and whatnot. Then when someone says something, you be like, ow, oh my goodness, you just said that. That's not what you're supposed to say. I'm about to go tell somebody and all this other stuff. That is what's going on now and whatnot. People don't help nobody. People rather record someone get their ass beat and whatnot, and that shit's cool and whatnot. These are the modern times of I can't even find the term to even say what the term. I can't even find a term to actually classify what I just said and whatnot, unless you guys got one. But I can't even find a term there and whatnot. But this is what's going on, Everyone, when someone say something bad about you, first thing you want to do is just try to rectify something and whatnot. We can't even be adults about situations and whatnot, but we can't be real about it and whatnot. So, talking to a friend of mine, and she shared something with me that was very interesting, that, supposedly upon like this, I think this whole new surgery for men who can actually grow wombs so they can actually have babies and whatnot, it seems like, they get a whole insurance thing, but towards like, certain procedures for women, it's getting quite, different and whatnot towards, what and companies are willing to cover and whatnot. But it seems like if you consider yourself as a transgender, oh, they're willing to cover everything. They're willing not to question anything. You can go whatever bathroom you choose to identify with. We got to have neutral general bathrooms and whatnot. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This is way too much based upon what someone sexually chooses to identify with and whatnot, or sexual orientation and whatnot, because nobody yells and screams, oh yeah, I'm a heterosexual, but, and many, and I'm not going to say many yet, but there's a few that, who want to scream it loud and proud and whatnot. That's fine and cool and whatnot, others don't and whatnot, which I respect. And like I told people, I've been around a lot of gay people and whatnot, a lot. I've seen transgender people, they don't bother me at all. What bothers me is that you feel because what you choose to identify yourself with and choose towards your sex orientation, feel like you have now this edge playing card or this kind of benefit card, that, it means something that your God's a green earth and whatnot, and I don't want to use this example, but it's already hard for, not a black man to just do anything, but it's even easier being a young black gay man walking around. Nobody's bothering you, and you feel a little more respected and whatnot, But if I go walk into a room, all eyes on me, and I can't be respected for the person who I am. So I don't yell and proud and scream that I'm heterosexual because it's a sexual orientation that is personal to me. So it wouldn't even matter, It wouldn't even matter. But I can't use my sexual orientation or what I sexually identify myself to make pushes and whatnot and be like, well, my boss don't like me because not because I'm black, but she's gay. I'm a heterosexual black male. She must hate all heterosexual black males and whatnot. I don't know, but a lot of people use their experience or these little small things that's happening to their life to try to destroy certain things and whatnot, and try to make people look bad. And that's what it is, I feel like this whole thing is more like a weapon, I don't think it's even about what they choose to sexually identify with or their sexual preference. You're using this as a bio weaponry behind this and whatnot. That's what I feel like with this community. It's a bio weapon and whatnot, I don't think it's even a community and whatnot, because they are using this group per se to control people's opinions, their acts, your decisions, right? There are certain people are afraid to say something, or do something, even if it's right or wrong and whatnot, because to me, it doesn't bother me, but I know it's just something you choose to identify yourself with, and it's a sexual preference, And the one thing I will always tell everybody, no transgender male who identifies himself as a woman will ever replace a woman. I will repeat that again and whatnot. I have no hate against no transgender men, but you're not going to replace the woman itself. It's not going to happen.
But I don't think that they necessarily are. I think they're just trying to identify what feels right to them, which they have the right to do. It is so not saying that what you're saying in any way is a problem, but I don't necessarily think that their intent is to replace. I think their intent is to fulfill something within themselves that for whatever reason they did not have at some point in their lives. Some of these people have made very clear that they didn't feel like a normal little boy or little girl, whatever normal means. I'm throwing up quotation marks you can't see, when they were younger, right? Because society has put all of these stereotypes. To be a boy, you must play sports. To be a proper little girl, you must wear skirts and etc. And I think in the transgender community specifically, the point was for whatever reason, whether you want to argue they were born that way or whether you want to argue chemical imbalance, whatever, the point is they didn't identify with the subset of gender that they were supposed to. And so this is their truth. And I don't necessarily think they're trying to replace the other gender, but I will say I agree that whenever they are trying to force someone else to change, to conform to what they want, that's where I have concern. You can become whatever you feel you want to become to satisfy your life and be happy without trying to force other people to make a change too, i.e. my example of transgender women now wanting women who are not transgender to call themselves cisgender. You can make that request, but you should not be offended if I choose not to adhere to it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I'm getting to. You see? You know? Because and I think I used the wrong word, intent, you know. I would want to say more, what's a comfortable word to say? You know? Envision sounds better, you know? Sounds a little bit more liberating, a little bit. Envision and whatnot. Because they're not actually doing it. But once you have something to drive that force to do it, you know, that's when you have to pull the plug and push the button. Like an example, Bruce Jenner, who became Caitlyn Jenner, who won, I think, Woman of the Year in a magazine and whatnot.
Yeah, that shit happened.
Yeah, that happened. Now. People ask me why am I mad at this? People ask me why am I so upset about it? I'm not upset about it because he won. I'm upset because it was a woman's magazine. I don't mind what he chooses to identify with. That don't bother me and whatnot. You know, it's an actual woman's magazine. So I need an actual woman. You know, I'm cool when he wants to choose to identify him as a woman. That does not bother me at all. It just doesn't, you know? I'm not losing my mind over that, you know? It's a simple fact that the magazine is based for women only, you know? That's what keeps driving this train to keep moving on. Because once you start doing
sorry, man. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was going to say, I get where you were going with that example. I think I don't particularly have a problem per se with that specific thing, only because it's a magazine and the magazine doesn't specifically stipulate like you have to have ovaries to compete for that. But where an example where I do think that there's an unfair advantage is in athletics, because I keep hearing people in the transgender community say, yeah, well, but there are some women who are born with a higher level of testosterone. It doesn't matter. scientifically, women anatomy and male anatomies are different, i.e., people who are born with ovaries and breasts and certain body parts that identify them as a woman, as a woman, is very different than people who are born with the anatomy of a man. So when you have transgender folks competing in competitions with folks who were not, who are of a different anatomy, I do think that there are unfair advantages there. And basically, I'm agreeing.
It's extremely unfair.
Yeah, extremely unfair.
And my only concern with that is that people keep making the argument, well, yeah, but you know, technically anyone could take hormones or anyone could take testosterone, etc. But we're talking about the fact that in most athletics, that's unpermitted. That's not permitted for anyone to do that. So what's happening is you have someone who has a natural level of testosterone, and their counterparts are not allowed to take a certain level of testosterone to meet that level, who is competing in a sport where that level of testosterone gives them an unfair advantage. I just wanted to note that because I definitely understand your point in that regard. Not necessarily in agreement with the woman's magazine part, although I do see your point, because, you know, but typically the magazine is geared towards people who identify as a woman, which transgender folks could do. But the analogy I wanted to give was the sports, because I overall see your point, E-Man. In the sports arena specifically, that's an unfair advantage, in my opinion.
I mean, I already knew it was unfair. I mean, when it comes, and this is the reason why, when it comes to certain women events, when women play versus when men play. So here, I'm going to use the easy example. So the women's NBA uses a 28.5 basketball. So their basketball diameter is smaller by a full inch from the fellas who play with a 29.5 ball and whatnot. You know, girls can use the 29.5 ball if they want to play with it towards, you know, shooting around and whatnot. But regulation wise, you know, a girl use, you know, because of their hands, you know, when you really pump up a 29, you know, their hands probably can't sit as well around that bigger diameter of a ball and whatnot. And that's all just based upon simple like genetics and whatnot.
Yeah, and that was another good example. That was another good example. So another one is that vice versa, right? It could be for vice versa too, because like, let's say it's an event where like the two competitors have to do a certain amount of flips. Well, women are generally structured, or women or people who are born with women anatomy, they are generally structured at a more agile rate. It would be easier for a woman gymnast to execute more flips than, say, a male gymnast. That's why there's still separation in gymnastics, in the Olympics, and in other sporting events. I just think there are certain instances where people are choosing to let their emotions override their logic. Science is science, regardless of how you feel about it emotionally. You can't just apply everything the way you want to because you feel a certain way about it emotionally. And again, let me be clear, I support human rights in general, regardless of what they may be. However someone wants to identify, they 100% have the right to identify that way, and they should not be harmed in any way because of it. However, science is science, and to a certain extent, you still have to be fair. I think it is unfair of certain communities to ask us to ignore the science in order to appreciate someone's feelings. Why can't we do both? Why can't you adhere to the science and still allow us to appreciate your feelings about something? That's my only concern.
I agree, and I tell everyone this, and, not just coming to sports and whatnot, football, is by, it's a man's sport based upon the collisions and whatnot. I had a chance to coach, with the DC Divas, which is an all tackle women's football team. actually had more fun around women playing football than fellas. You know the reason why? You know, I didn't just get, towards just like them playing and learning the game, Women had this thing about being it's this whole like aura of energy of like togetherness and whatnot, when they're together, it's like this, it's like that whole nurturing thing of what women naturally do and whatnot, and it was like amazing to see a lot of them, playing football, being encouraged, challenging each other, and keeping a good competitive spirit and whatnot, and it was something different. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing, and I would love that even more, but when I pitched it to other fellas, they're like, nah, I don't want to see, women playing football. I was like, they created a whole lingerie league just to see them half naked so they could play football, and people got into it. But it seemed like a woman has to be half naked to play football or do something to keep your eyes open to actually enjoy the game and whatnot, So that's the thing, when it comes down to sports, you definitely got to split them up, but we have to be more versatile than women. I would love women to play football. I've never said they shouldn't, Yeah. They do soccer, they do swimming, they have their own set of tracking events, they do, they play softball instead of baseball and whatnot, and that's a whole, and the reason behind that, that's a whole different dynamics behind it and whatnot, yeah. That from the sport aspect, like, yeah. Now to continue on, what I was saying was, that when I was going back to my comment about, the whole thing, and the whole thing about, how these transgenders identify themselves as actual women, but they're not women and whatnot, and the one thing, a woman would always be a woman. We have to watch out how we accept things, because the more we keep accepting it as a society, because I tell everyone like this, society moves how the flow of society goes, and what I mean by that is us in society don't depict the decision society. We always pick the outcome when it comes to society and whatnot. So a lot of things we do creates an outcome, thus sometimes create a decision, and which draws in, the depiction of how something is given to an individual or someone and whatnot, So it doesn't bother me what they do, and it doesn't bother me how they identify themselves, But if you can't naturally bring something into the universe, because that is the power of women. They bring something naturally into this universe and whatnot, towards when you choose to identify, like, yeah, but you can't take something that natural away from them. Just like what pisses me off is like, another thing is, like the whole breastfeeding thing. That's a natural thing, but it's wrong and whatnot. You see, it's like you're trying to demonize an actual woman, naturally who they are, versus as, someone who is not, and that's not throwing shade on that. I'm going by what I'm seeing in society and try to make it actual factual and true, because this is what I'm seeing based upon what's out there.
LGBTQ community or not, who says that breastfeeding is wrong, is not worth having the conversation with in the first place. It's a natural occurrence. I've never personally, and I'm not saying that you're wrong on this or that you're, out of the way with it, but I've never met an LGBTQ community person that said that it was wrong to breastfeed your child. I've never met anyone who said that in that community.
Yeah, but that sounds asinine.
Yeah.
Huh?
But I was saying that sounds asinine for anybody.
I've never heard of that. I actually have close friends who are transgender. I've never heard them say that. But I'm not saying, Eman, that you said that you did anyway. I'm just saying, I think anyone, regardless of the community they fall into, that would say that, that is an indication that they do not have enough general logic, common sense, or intelligence to continue that conversation. Mm-hmm. In my opinion. Because that's a natural occurrence. Mm-hmm. Evolution made it so that any mother can naturally feed their child, even in the wild. Yeah, other mammals it's a natural have the ability to produce milk to feed their child. That conversation is insane. So it's because, but I think we digress anyway. Because we're talking about Dave Chappelle and now, apologizing to the LGBTQ community.
My apologies. I think I digressed a few times. So
no, you're fine.
So Dave, as he stated in his special, that he gave a transgender woman, transgender men who identify as woman. I gotta make sure I get this right, because if I don't, everyone's gonna be like, blah, 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 this, that, and the third, or probably kill me over it. So he gave her a chance and whatnot, He gave her a chance. Mm-hmm. The same community that she supported did not and whatnot. Did not at all and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And she was by far the biggest Dave Chappelle fan and whatnot. But here comes the thing behind the whole thing. She didn't lose her life because of Dave. She lost her life based upon the community that she identified with, who did not support her and whatnot. So my question is out there, who's over part of that community, like, are you not taking care of your own? Because your own took themselves out because of you, not because of Dave and whatnot, So, that's where I get confused, because it's this whole picking and choosing with them and whatnot, because they always want to attack. I don't want to say this, but the black heterosexual male and whatnot. They always got beef with us and whatnot. Always.
Yeah, they do. It's funny.
It's funny though. I'm gonna tell you, it's extremely funny and whatnot. Because most women don't see it, but we always see it, because we be like, I know what you're trying to do and whatnot. They always got beef. That's why. Always got beef with us.
Because they fear us. That's
and that's the thing. We will always be feared, no matter what we do or what we say. I can walk in a room, all eyes on me. I don't even have to say anything and whatnot, Yeah. And it's I wouldn't even say it's sad to that point, but look how much attention I bring to a room without even saying anything and whatnot. Yet alone, there's a group, of people who identify as women who hate us, heavily and whatnot, and we have nothing to do with it. So I'm going to just end my thought on this. Like, Dave didn't do anything wrong. Dave is still spitting out the same points that most of us also agree with and whatnot, and everyone is still in that panties of a bunch. They want to have this soft society, and people not taking a joke. Guess what? Take a fucking joke. It's okay to laugh and whatnot. It's okay. It really is. Y'all don't want to laugh. Y'all want to be salty, like salt in your throat or in your mouth. That's the type of shit y'all deal with every day. And I'm ending my thoughts like that. Stop being salty. Yes, sir. Laugh a little. My damn.
All right. Thank you, sir. So, Mr. PAT, last but certainly not least, please go ahead and wrap us up with this amazing session with the question: Should Dave Chappelle apologize to the LGBTQ community or be canceled? What say you, sir?
I say no to both. No, Dave Chappelle doesn't need to apologize to the LGBTQ community. And no, Dave Chappelle should not be canceled. See, the thing is, LGBTQ has proved Dave's point. When a Black person is killed, it's not seen as offensive, but hurting a member of LGBTQ's feelings is seen as more offensive. I find that to be interesting. But yeah, Dave Chappelle should not have to apologize to the LGBTQ community, because what he said in his comedy special is the truth. He spoke truth. It's as simple as that. I know the truth hurts, but hey, we all have to deal with the truth. We all have to deal with truth that we don't like. The fact is, there is racism within the LGBTQ community. See, of course, no one likes to hear about it, though. God forbid you say anything against big bad LGBT. The minute you say something they don't like, you're either quote unquote homophobic or quote unquote transphobic.
Yep.
Which is a bunch of bullshit in my opinion, but I'm gonna just say this. I understand.
Sorry to cut you off, PAT. I'm gonna let you finish though. But once you said that, you know what came to my mind?
What?
Remember the three little pigs and whatnot in the Big Bad Wolf? And how he's trying to like blow the house down?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I feel like what it is and whatnot. But I'm gonna just let you continue.
Yeah, no, yeah. Actually, I see where you're going with that. But yeah, I'm gonna just say that, I understand that LGBTQ is a marginalized community and there has been crimes committed against them. I understand that. And what I will say is, I don't wish suffering on anyone for living their life however they see fit. My only thing is, they can't force others to agree with their lifestyle. They can't force others to agree with their views or anything else.
Agree.
The fact of the matter is, some people will not agree, and they need to deal with that. Everybody's not going to just fall in line with agreeing with their lifestyle or their views or how they see things or whatever. Like it's just not going to happen. See, the thing is, Dave Chappelle said in a special, quote, "Gender is a fact. Every human being in this room, every human being on earth had to pass through the legs of a woman to be on earth. That is a fact." End quote. This is what Dave Chappelle said on The Closer. Now, that's true. The only thing I'd say is sex is a fact, since it's dealing more in the biological. Now, here's the thing. If a man wants to call himself a woman, or if a woman wants to call herself a man, that's fine. All I'm saying is, I'm not going to buy into that. We'll just disagree and keep it moving.
Agree.
See, the thing is, Dave Chappelle touched the nerve with LGBTQ because he brought up their racism. When people hear about racism, they just think of heterosexual white men and white women. But the fact is, racism goes beyond that. The fact is, racism / white supremacy is prevalent in the gay community. We can look through history and see that there were slave owners who were gay. We can look at the practices like buck breaking.
George Washington. Yeah.
And, there were others too. But we can look at practices like buck breaking, where white male slave owners raped their black male slaves. transgendering was a thing back then too. Some slave owners dressed in drag and had their black male slaves dress in drag also.
That is true.
It was, as we all know, it was a way to emasculate enslaved boys and men and ultimately dehumanize them.
Right.
I have a question though. Do we run the risk of being a little dangerous with this narrative? Because what's the difference when a racist says that Black men being rapists is a common part of Black history because majority of the rapes that occurred in America were at the hands of Black men or etc. Or when they put some other type of stereotype on Black people? Isn't that a little bit dangerous, just like it is dangerous to say that racism is a common thread amongst the LGBTQ community? I don't know that that's true. There are bad apples in every community.
I didn't say common. I don't think I used the word common. I was just saying that it's in the community. And my thing is, it has to be pointed out. The thing is, I think people are afraid. People are afraid to like say anything bad about LGBT, and not necessarily bad, but to just speak out against them. Because
no, I agree with that. I do believe that certain people do have that fear because of the impact that they seem to have on society today.
I ain't scared of them.
I agree with that to a certain extent.
I ain't scared of them. I'm just letting you know that right now.
No. I know. I'm not saying anyone particularly on this call, but I'm saying I have heard people say that they feel like the LGBTQ community has more impact than any other organization.
That's true.
I've heard people say that.
Right. And the thing is too, I just want to make it clear, you know, and that's why I didn't use the word common. I'm not going to say, oh, well, it's a common thing that, you know, all these LGBT people are racist. Like I'm not going to make a broad sweeping, like I'm just going to say that racism is a part of that community. That's all I'm saying. Like we have to acknowledge that. I think people need to start acknowledging that. We need to see it for what it is. And it needs to be spoken on. Like it just needs to be, I just think it needs to be spoken on, you know, and that's why I'm bringing it up. And Dave Chappelle touched on that. That was, you know, part of the special. He was saying that there's racism within that community. And I mean, that's a fact. There's no, he didn't lie. He didn't make anything up, you know, so I'm just, you know, speaking on that aspect, but, you know, so yeah, there's white supremacy within the LGBTQ community. And, you know, the white supremacy within it runs deep. But see, this goes back to what I was saying before. No one wants to really talk about it. You know, people are just too afraid. But see, I'm not, you know, I'm not, I'm going to speak on it, you know, because that's my MO. Like I don't fear anything or anyone. So, you know, if other people want to fear talking about that, cool, but I'm not. You know, myself and others don't have that fear. And speaking of which, I'm glad that Tariq Nasheed put out the documentary Buck Breaking. And I would encourage everyone to watch it if they haven't already. Now, I know I've touched on the past, you know, in terms of like the racism within the LGBTQ community, but we could even look at more recent times where there have been reports of racism within the gay community and LGBT organizations. One of the gay communities that had reports of racism is an affluent gay community out in San Francisco called the Castro.
Oh, no.
See, what's funny to me is that within the gay community, I rarely see where Black homosexuals have as much wealth and resources as their white counterparts. See, that's another thing nobody else really wants to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about that. See, Black homosexuals can be included to boost LGBTQ's numbers, but we have to ask a serious question. Are Black homosexuals receiving serious tangible benefits like their white counterparts? Or are the Black homosexuals in the LGBTQ community just mascots? And this is a serious question. I'm asking a serious question for
that
anyone
was
out
a
there.
dope way to say it. Mascots. I like that.
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to, you know, somebody needs to tell me, like, are they receiving any tangible benefits, any wealth or resources, or are they just mascots? Maybe somebody out there.
So are you suggesting that white homosexuals are directly benefiting from the movement for equality of the LGBTQ community, whereas Black homosexuals and transgender and queer folks are not?
I would say the white ones benefit more, and
Okay.
the reason I'm saying that is because the fact is we live in a system of white supremacy. So white people, regardless of their sexual orientation, are always the first to receive benefits across the board. So that includes the LGBTQ community. So Black homosexuals will get the short end of the stick. Going back to Dave Chappelle, see, he touched the nerve because he brought up the racism within LGBT. Really, he brushed over it lightly. He didn't even go that deep. I could only imagine if he were to go any deeper with it. LGBTQ wants Netflix to take down The Closer. They want to cancel Dave Chappelle. So from what I've seen so far, no one is looking to cancel Dave. At least not on a large scale anyway. The thing is, Dave is not Kevin Hart. And no shade against Kevin Hart. No shade against Kevin Hart. It's not like I dislike Kevin Hart, but you know,
I dislike that midget.
But the fact is, LGBTQ did get Kevin Hart to back down and apologize for gay jokes he made in the past. See, the thing is, they won't be able to do that with Dave Chappelle, though. And going back to the racism within the LGBTQ community, I thought it was interesting how they required Kevin Hart to apologize, but they didn't require Kevin Hart's white counterparts to apologize. I don't know if y'all remember
no
that.
one
That's very
forced
interesting.
Kevin to physically apologize. He elected to do that. He could have very well. Now I understand the premise of what you're saying is that if he didn't, his career could have been ended or etc. But you could make the argument that if he solely stood on what he believed, then especially all the money he's already accrued, he could have refused to apologize and still been very rich.
Right.
Nah.
So he elected to apologize, just like Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon actually came from a family of money in the first place. So he could have refused to apologize and still been very rich. They chose to apologize.
Well, yeah, that's true. What everything is saying is true. Like they weren't, I guess force isn't the right term to use. They were, I guess, coerced, or I think coerced is probably a better word to use.
Can we stop supporting this midget, please? Like, we need to stop this. Stop supporting this midget.
But no.
Yes, he's a midget. He's only like 5'4" or some shit like that. I don't care.
I'm just looking at the situation.
Kevin is nowhere near 5'9". All right.
No. I didn't say he was 5'9". I said he's not a midget, because there actually know someone who classifies that has dwarfism, and that is not the height.
Yeah, he's not an actual midget. He's just a really short dude. But going back to what I was saying though, so basically LGBTQ required Kevin Hart to apologize, but for whatever reason, they didn't require white comedians who made gay jokes in the past to apologize. So I thought that was interesting. I'm like, hold up. Well, okay, you wanted Kevin Hart to apologize for making gay jokes in the past. Okay. but there were many other comedians who made gay jokes as well, but you didn't require them to apologize. You required Kevin Hart to do that. So to me, that shows the racism within that community, because they picked on the black man. See, they didn't go for the white comedians. They went for the black comedian, and they're doing it again with Dave Chappelle.
They can't pick on Dave.
Well, yeah, because Dave don't give a fuck. I mean,
that's why they can't pick on Dave. They can't pick on him. They're trying super hard to go pick on Dave. And I'm sorry to cut you off, PET. Remember what he said on his special? He said, "Fuck Twitter." He said, "Fuck Facebook."
Yeah, pretty much.
Because you're not real people and whatnot.
Right. He got his money too.
So he can say, so Dave's like, yo, you can keep it on the comments on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. That don't bother me. Once the check clears, bitch, I'm good, and keep it moving and whatnot, because it cleared. It definitely cleared because they wouldn't have put that special on Netflix. So that's all I'm just saying.
Yep. Yeah. Facts. But
yeah, I mean, Netflix actually supporting him on this. That's what I was saying earlier when I gave my speech. I mean, from that perspective, you both made valid points. Netflix is standing behind Dave Chappelle on this because, again, he didn't actually say anything to incite hate or violence against the transgender community. He really didn't.
He didn't.
He really just didn't do it. What they're accusing him of, he didn't do it. They're accusing him of inciting hate or something. Nothing he said was hate. He did not say, go out and hate transgender people. He did not say, go out and commit violence against transgender people. He said his beliefs are that, gender identity is, non-negotiable. That's his right to feel that way and his belief to feel that way. That's not inciting hate because he's stating his opinion. He just is not guilty of what he's being accused of.
Well, they're trying to assert power. That's what they've been doing. And that's kind of what I'm talking about.
That's what it is.
That's pretty much what I'm talking about with the racism. They're trying to assert their power on this black man, another black man, because they asserted power on Kevin Hart. They basically made an example out of Kevin Hart. So they're trying to do that with Dave Chappelle also, because they're basically like, oh, you're saying something about LGBTQ. So you need to apologize for that. You need to bow down. You need to kiss the ring. It's that type of thing. So they're trying to assert their power. But see, Dave's not going for it. And I'm glad that Dave is standing on his square. He's staying on his square. And he, at least for now, he's not moving from what we've seen. And
Dave ain't moving.
Yeah. And Netflix is behind him too. So, and for the most part, the people, the people, his fans are behind him as well. So yeah, this is one of those fights that maybe LGBTQ might not win.
They can take L's. It'll be all right.
They have an L in their name, so they got to take the L.
It's okay. Like I said, it's okay if you take an L. That's fine with me and whatnot. But I'll be sitting there laughing with Dave and be like, ha ha, ha ha. I got you.
But yeah, all jokes aside, though, I guess no pun intended, because we're talking about a comedian and we're talking about comedy. So I was touching on the racism aspect of LGBTQ because that is what Dave Chappelle was talking about in his special. See, that's the irony in this whole thing. He was talking about how they're racist towards black people. So, and they didn't like that. I think it's just one of those things where it's like, hold up, how you like, whoa, you're exposing us, that type of thing. So they have a problem with that as well. But, we got to state facts here. I mean, it's there, and not everybody's going to be afraid to touch on it. But just to wrap up my spiel, at the end of the day, no, Dave Chappelle shouldn't apologize to the LGBTQ community, and no, he should not be canceled. And comedy should not be censored. When it comes to comedy, no group is safe. So why would LGBTQ be an exception? I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, why all of a sudden there need to be an exception? If every other group isn't safe from comedy, why do they have to be an exception? Comedy has always been a form of entertainment that pushes the envelope. The last thing we need to be doing is trying to censor it. Comedy needs to continue to push the envelope. So that's how I look at it.
Yes, sir. Excellent stuff. Well, thank you both fellas for a wonderful session. We definitely covered some difficult and hard topics. And for our listeners out there, I want to, make sure we make this clear one more time. Again, the topics and subjects that we discuss are often very difficult to a certain extent, but our opinions are just that, the individual opinions of everyone on this panel. And while we definitely are strong-willed and opinionated on certain subjects, it is never our intent to impose on anyone's lifestyle, to each their own. With that said, we thank you so much for all of your support, all the love we've been showing.
Yes, thank you.
We've been shown. Before we wrap up, definitely want to throw it to Mr. PAT and E-Man to share some special contact details with you all so that you can hear some of these awesome services that they offer. Mr. PAT, go ahead and drop that info, sir.
thepatchannel.com. Once again, thepatchannel.com. I'm in the business of content creation, graphic design, web design, illustration, basically creative services. Go on thepatchannel.com and you will see links to all of those, whichever one you need. And you can get in contact with me through there. My social media handles are on there as well, are on thepatchannel.com as well. Go there, click, subscribe, follow, like, share, and let's do business.
All of that.
All that.
Mr. E-Man, drop that info, my dude.
All right. So it is, my IG is Woo Athletics, WOO Athletics 56, WOO Athletics with an S 56. I do everything from nutritional counseling to personal training to sports coaching. I actually got new content of two athletes that I'm working with right now. One in soccer and one in football. And I work with all ages, any levels. Personal training, I take all ages, any levels, of course. And then also, I am actually creating my own alkaline smoke clean blend. I am almost done with packaging, so I will finally have product on sale in the next 3 weeks.
Yes, sir. That's what's up. Definitely looking forward to that. Well, to our listeners, our supporters, thank you once again. Like, subscribe, share, get on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, keep that content flowing. We release the hotness every week, talking about the hottest subjects. Once again, thank you to everyone out there for the love and support. And until next time, peace.
Peace.